Not my fault.
Woo, I think that's it. We had some technical difficulties. Sorry if you're just popping on. Or sorry if you missed us.
1 minute late.
1 minute late. Hey, we got 7.
Yeah, all right.
7 people are going to listen to us? That's amazing. All right. Throw something up in the chat if you're here. And
we
lost one. Oh. All right, well, we'll wait a minute or two before we get jamming.
Robert Willis, awesome.
Cool.
Thank you for chiming in, Robert. Just going to hop on and see if I can see.
Heck yeah. So how's everyone doing? We're at the Land Cruiser Heritage Museum. I mean, that's the only reason why Kurt and I actually do this is we get to hang out here with a bunch of Land Cruisers. So
he's not wrong.
I think Kurt's checking in on the
messages,
the live stream and the messages to make sure that they're jamming.
See it on my end.
Cool. Oh, dude, we're up to 8.
Stacking it up.
It's incredible. It feels so popular now. Well, we're going to give this a couple minutes. If you would, if you're leading a trail for Cruise Moab, hop into the comments and put in the chat what trail you're leading. All right, we got Eric and Laura.
Sweet. Carson City, awesome. Eric and Laura.
Awesome. Can everyone hear us okay? Anyone that can't hear us?
And Robert, not leading, just here to learn a little bit. Totally awesome. Cool. Looks like Andy can hear us. Thank you, Andy.
All right.
And I'd say even if you're not leading this year, hopefully this kind of gives you a little background about what leaders are doing behind the scenes and maybe get you prepared to offer to lead in the coming years. One real good benefit, few benefits of leading. One is no dust. It's kind of a low-hanging fruit one, but also you sometimes get to guarantee yourself on a trail if you're the trail leader.
Heck yeah, and you don't have to collect everyone's dust.
That's it. I said that was one. You were listening.
Sorry, I was.
Yeah, that was number one reason to be the trail leader.
Well, we'll kick off. My name's Jackson Philby. I've been part of Cruise Moab since I think 2000. I'm going to say 2011 was my first Cruise Moab. Maybe 2012. I can't remember now. But kind of been leading trails ever since. My introduction to trail leadership for Cruise Moab was Jeff Sepp saying, "Hey, have you ever ran XYZ trail?" I'm trying to remember what it was. Flatiron Mesa, I think. Have you ever ran Flatiron Mesa? And I was like, yeah. He's like, cool, you're leading it on Wednesday. And I was like, or Thursday. That sounds great. And just straight threw me into the fire. So anyways, it's always an amazing time. It's a great event, and I love going to it. Haven't missed a year since.
Sweet. Kurt Williams, member of the Wasatch Cruisers. We've been, as a club, involved helping Rising Sun, who is the club that puts on Cruise Moab. We can dive in that a little more later on, but we've been helping out since the maybe late 90s, early 2000s. I've personally been going, I think, since year 2000. I'd have to look and see either 1999 or year 2000. I think I've missed 1 year in all that time. And for the last, I'm going to call it 15 years, I've been leading the San Rafael Swell Run that we do as a kind of a multi-night overnighter trails, as those are called, up in the San Rafael Swell. And before that, the Wasatch Cruisers did the Hole in the Rock Trail. And for a little while, we did Arch Canyon and Hotel Rock down south of town. So, but led a lot of other trails over the years at Cruise Moab, but kind of fallen into my spot. Love the Swell. So it's an easy one for me to say yes to every year.
Heck yeah. So before we get started into a whole bunch of stuff, I thought it would be kind of a cool thing to go over some data that we've been collecting for years, but haven't really done a ton with except for internally. Every year when we send out a survey for Cruise Moab, we ask participants, hey, was there a trail leader that you thought that was so good that you should mention by name? And we've got a pretty decent list. And before I get into the names, I'll just say, like, as a trail leader, it's such a wonderful thing to be sort of the face and voice and eyes and ears of Cruise Moab. So not only do you get to connect with other participants of Cruise Moab and be sort of the face of Cruise Moab, but you also are the eyes and ears for like the committee to help make things better each year. So thank you for all those that are on that have done the survey before, but I'll run through, and Kurt, you can take some of these. I'll run through the list of, in the last, say, since 2019 to 2023, trail leaders that were mentioned by name. And a lot of these trail leaders were mentioned more than once by more than one participant. So if you don't hear your name on here, it's not because you didn't do an amazing job. We have had several people say, oh man, I wish I could remember their name. They did an amazing job. And hopefully that was you. But I'll just start at the top. So Greg Lure. Greg's been around Cruise Moab and the Rising Sun for a ton of years, so no surprise there. Prophets, they've done an amazing job every year. Hans White, Matt Farr, Tim Nakari, Marlon, Big Mike. I don't think Marlon's there this year, but hope to see Marlon back one of these years.
Well, Marlon has passed away, but Big Mike comes as Marlon. I don't know if they'll be there this year, but they've been a lot of years, and they usually lead a pretty technical run when he comes out.
Absolutely.
Something really fun.
And I think everyone probably misses, I know I do, seeing Marlon weld on everybody's junk every year.
Yeah.
It was always a real treat.
A mainstay in the camping area working on somebody's rig.
We got Alan Capatina. Some of these were just first names. We have an Aaron. So if you led a trail and your name is Aaron, pat yourself on the back. You don't really know who that was.
You did great.
You did great. Let's see. Andy Levine.
Mr. Brian.
Oh, yep. Brian with an I.
No last name.
No last name.
You did awesome, Brian. Well done.
If it's Brian with an I, pat yourself on the back.
Andy, I see you just chimed in and said you're doing Hell's Revenge, and your name just popped up as one of our outstanding or exceptional trail leaders that got comments over the years.
Absolutely. Daniel Markovsky. He's been around forever.
Happy birthday yesterday, Daniel.
Yeah. Let's see.
Sarah, sure.
Yep.
Rock star. Sarah is an absolute rock star, and every year gets really good reviews. You see the number. Her name pops up all the time in comments. Yep. Great trail leader.
Drives stickers. It's a big, huge built 80 with little purple lizards all over it. Anyways.
Brings Dan around too, and he's a pretty good guy as well.
Let's see. Jameson Dion. I don't think he's at Cruise Moab this year, but excellent dude. Of course, Matt Gaskins. Henning Plesner, or Plez, if you know those guys. Chris Hatfield. Bob and Kayla. There was no last names involved, but I'm sure that there's not too many pairs that go by Bob and Kayla. We got Ken R. Maybe that's Ken Romer. I don't know.
Could be, yeah.
Keith Vincent, Justin Henry, Rob Holt, Neil Quigley, Anders. If your name's Anders, pat yourself on the back. We didn't have a last name there. Roy West, George Hickler, Brian Flynn, Amanda Latz, Kurt, and then I've been on there a couple times as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
So if you're one of those names, thank you for being an awesome trail leader and providing a wonderful experience for folks and for your leadership on the trail.
Or if you know any of them, tell them they got a little thumbs up. This video is being recorded and it'll be shared later on as well. So that we'll make this available so that anyone that couldn't chime in tonight can hop on and review this. Just get prepared to be ready to be a trail leader.
Cool. You want to hop in with some brief history of Cruise Moab?
Sure. Wasn't prepared for this, but I'll be easy to dive in. Cruise Moab. What did we? How many years? See, I'm totally on the spot here. I'm going to say 95 is in my head. Is that right? Is the first year? Somebody chime in the comments because someone will know off the top of my head. And I should know this because we just celebrated.
I think that was the first technical year, but not the 25th annual. I think.
Okay, we're in 25. Well, 25 was a couple years ago. Like 2 years ago or last year?
I think 25 was 2021.
Okay. Obviously, we're very horrible at giving a Cruise Moab brief history.
Oh, nobody in the Rising Sun actually knows either because there's always this big argument of whether it was the first annual or the very first one, or was it the first year that it was permitted, or et cetera, et cetera. So
I will say this. I was there in 1995, not as part of Cruise Moab. I was a Boy Scout on the Poison Spider Mesa Trail and ran across. I was 15 years old. And saw a whole group of Land Cruiser owners from Colorado that were out there either as part of Cruise Moab or pre-running or just doing like a fall trip. But it was Rising Sun folks, and confirmed later on in life that happened to be there on a mountain bike when they were doing that trail. So at least since 95. But Cruise Moab is an annual event. We've only not been able to do it, I think, 1 year in all that time. So whatever that duration is, it's only missed once. And that was the 2020 COVID year when all things were not possible to do group activities like that in Moab. It's grown a lot over the years. It started trail rides only, and then it's morphed into trail rides with a very active vendor show. I think this year will be one of the largest it's been in the past, and it's like filled up, if I'm not mistaken, inside the arena. And it's also moved locations. For a lot of years, it was the Slick Rock campground on the north side of town, which was all right. And everybody, there were some fun parts about it. You could camp on site. The vendor show was right next door. The dinner and raffle were right there. The downsides were it wasn't the most, at the time, wasn't a perfect campground and didn't suit everybody's needs. So over the years, it's moved around a little bit, but it's landed these last handful of years at the Spanish Trails Arena, which is a county facility at the south end of town. Plus sides of that are there are camping on site. So if you're not sure where you're staying yet and you want to camp, you can stay right there. It's not the most elegant camping. It's kind of in the like parking area, horse stall areas, but it's not bad. And there's a whole bunch of cruiser heads there. So every night it's fun and there's a campfire. But there is a really nice inside facility at the Spanish Trails Arena where the vendor show, the raffle, the prizes, like all things happen, check-in, registration, all happen there. So it really gave Cruise Moab and the committee and the whole event a firm foundation to be in one spot. So if you need to find somebody at any time, there's always a trail boss hanging out in that office during daily hours anyway, not 24 hours a day. So yeah, that's cool. Cruise Moab in a nutshell.
Heck yeah. Again, if anyone knows the answer to which
what
annual
started,
this is,
okay, that'd be good
you
to
can
know.
start a good debate in the comment section. Okay. All right, so to kind of run through what we're going to talk about tonight, just in general, we'll talk about good trail leadership. We'll talk about documentation. We'll talk about emergency communication, preparedness as a leader, kind of what to expect as a leader for Cruise Moab. We'll run through some basic trail etiquette stuff, just as a quick reminder for everyone. Some of it is in general, and some of it's sort of specific to Cruise Moab, I guess. Overall, good practices, though. Of course, we'll hit tread lightly. We'll talk a little bit about spotting, just in general, some pointers, not necessarily how to spot, but how to manage that on the trail. A brief picture of what your driver's meeting will look like before you start the trail. And then, of course, what to expect throughout the day, and then managing the air up. So, yeah, we'll get jamming.
Let's do it.
Cool.
Go back and forth. You take one, I'll take one.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, documentation. You're up.
Oh, wait, we didn't talk about what makes a good trail leader.
Oh, well.
We actually have an agenda, so that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you start with what makes a good trail leader?
Well,
and I'll chime in.
Totally. Obviously open to interpretation in many ways, but I think being there on time, knowing the trail you're going to run, and just kind of making sure you look out that everybody's having a good time throughout the day. We're going to talk about a lot of those things in depth that all kind of backfeed to that one, but just want to emphasize that don't be stressed out about being a trail leader. I know every year it's a little bit of a struggle, some years more than others, for the Cruise Moab committee to get enough trail leaders to run all the trails that would ideally like to be done at Cruise Moab. And sometimes some of those trails that otherwise are open for the permit, and Jackson handles a lot of the permits, so he could touch on what some of those trails are, but we don't even run them because we just don't have a trail leader that puts their hand up and says, hey, I'll lead that trail. And if you do, in most cases, they fill up. And that changes a little bit of ebb and flows as kind of people do different things with their vehicles. But yeah, moral of that story is if there's something a trail you'd like to run and you're not seeing run at Cruise Moab, maybe hit us up. You can throw it in the chat or back channel afterwards and say, hey, why don't we run this trail? A lot of times it's because we just don't have a trail leader for that one. And it could be done in the future if there's enough interest.
So number one for you is a good trail leader is someone who's willing to lead a trail.
They're willing to lead a trail.
I agree.
You're the warm body, you got the pulse and you put your hand in the air.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I always appreciate a trail leader that lays out the foundation up front of what the expectations are for the trail. So lets everybody know what time we'll start, what time we'll finish. And in general, doesn't micromanage the group too much, but is kind of in charge. So to me, a good trail leader is someone that's a pretty fun person, that doesn't take it too seriously, but knows when to get serious. So anyways, other than that, I agree with everything Kurt said, man. The being willing and able to lead a trail is the first thing that makes a good trail leader.
Yeah, don't give yourself any invisible roadblocks that takes any special talent beyond just having a capable vehicle of your own and you're comfortable running the trail with a group behind you. You don't have to be an expert mechanic. It's not your job. We don't ask anybody that. You don't have to be an expert recovery master. We're going to talk about these down later, but don't let that be the hurdle. Like, you're not in charge of solving every problem every day. You don't need to make lunch for anybody. You're just there to kind of get everybody on the trail at the appropriate time, have a good day on the trail, and get off the trail safely. I mean, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it.
Yep. A best way to get started as a trail leader is to be a gunner for a trail. Maybe to get kind of broken in on, maybe you've been a participant, now you want to take a little bit of a leadership role, so you'll hop in as a gunner, and then of course start small. You know, if this is your second year ever wheeling, maybe you don't want to start with leading cliffhanger. You could start with leading something like fins and things, or don't get in over your head right away.
Yep, totally good. And cool. Why we talk about nomenclature real quick, maybe everyone's not up to speed on that. In most Cruise Moab trails, you're going to have a trail leader, and they are actually signed up as the trail leader as well as a designated trail gunner. Sometimes the gunners will happen on the spot if a trail leader doesn't have a designated gunner. But the goal is to have all those set up ahead of time. And it's just as the name sounds. You've got the leader that's going to be up front, and then we always have a trail gunner, or the tail leader, sometimes they're called, that's at the back of the group, and they make sure that nobody gets behind them so that no one gets left on the trail. It's as simple as that. It's not uncommon for those two to sometimes have a different channel that they're talking on just with each other, in addition to making sure they're monitoring comms and able to participate in the group chat with the entire group. But sometimes it's helpful to have like a secondary channel if you happen to have two radios or a dual band radio, that you have something that you can talk to your tail gunner, just to have like a little bit of update without having to. You definitely don't want to offend anybody, but know, hey, let's keep an eye on this vehicle. They're struggling at these types of spots. Maybe there's some reason to have that, but those are the two assigned duties. Sometimes on bigger runs, we do this in the swell because we have a big group, but also we get stretched out over a lot of miles. We could do up to 100 miles, mostly off-road in a day. We'll sometimes have a mid-gunner, and that person could do a few things. He or she could help with radio communication, just passing messages from the front to the middle to the back. But also, in the event that maybe we do have a breakdown, we don't always leave the entire group together. Most of the time we try to, especially if it's something that can be solved in an expedient manner. But in the event that we can solve the problem, but it's going to take a little while, sometimes we'll split the group into two. Let's get half the group moving, and that we can designate a new tail gunner that can kind of keep track of everybody in front. And the mid gunner, or the waist gunners that can be called, will hang out and now lead that second group. Sometimes that makes actually faster for two groups than one single group. So there could be some pros and cons of that. But most trails are just going to have a leader and a gunner.
Yep. That'll be also important if you're leading one of the national park runs. You should get an email from the trail boss here soon to reach out to me. There's some special stipulations with that we'll go over together if you're leading the national park runs. But cool. Well, I think we pretty much beat that one pretty good. So we'll hit documentation. This is probably the most boring part, but one of the most important parts of trail leadership for Cruise Moab. Before I get into showing you the actual documents, there is a new way that we're doing waivers this year. So if you've been to Cruise Moab or you've been a trail leader before, you've known that every morning we have folks sign their name, and sign the waiver. Well, that's kind of gone by the wayside. Your waiver, everyone's waiver for Cruise Moab will be electronic, and you'll have to present proof that you filled out the waiver when you pick up your packet. And if you don't want to do the electronic version, when you go to pick up your packet, there'll be physical versions that you can do. So everyone that signed up for Cruise Moab should be getting a way to fill out their waiver digitally. So we won't go too much more into that because the process will be all streamlined once you go to pick up your packet. The main thing as a leader to know is that, woohoo, we don't have to do that part of our paperwork anymore. So one less thing we got to do at the meetup spot. Okay, so every now and again, accidents do happen. We still have this form. In your leader packet, there will be a way to contact emergency services. There will be contact information for the trail boss, in our phone that's at headquarters. And then you'll have one of these forms, which is a trail accident form. So when in doubt, fill out the information that's on this form. You'll see it in your packet. If something happens on the trail, it's better to over document than to not do anything at all. That's especially true because even if like no one's injured or anything like that, we still need to report that information to the BLM. So like if you have a flop on your trail or something like that, maybe take some pictures and fill out one of these forms and get it to leadership back at HQ. But anyways, there's a form in here. This will help guide you through the process of documenting any accidents. Next up, if you're on the trail and you're stopped by a ranger, a BLM ranger, national park ranger, or somebody questioning you about trust lands, which probably will never happen, but if you do, you have all of our permits in your leader packet, and I'll explain what they look like. So your BLM permit looks like this. The most common stop is the National Park Service. Your permit looks like this. And it's a very similar permit for canyon lands and for arches. And then your trust lands right of entry permit looks like this. So everybody's leader packet has all of the same permits in it. And like I said, if you are stopped by some sort of law enforcement or ranger or something like that, you can tell them that you have a permit and it's all in your packet to show them what you're up to.
And when do you pick up your packet?
You pick up your packet the day before you leave the trail. So don't wait till the morning of. There may not be anybody at HQ. So make sure you pick up your trail leader packet before the day or night before you lead your trail.
Perfect. And on the same note, after the trail, we got a lot to get through before you get there, but just kind of keep in your mind, pick up the packet the night before and drop it off as soon as you get back to Spanish Trails Arena. So as soon as your trail is done, best practice would be go right to Spanish Trails Arena. I mean, if you're stopping for food or fuel, of course, do your things, but then drop that packet off because the trail leader there and the trail boss at the Cruise Moab HQ needs to kind of receive all those and then flip all those back around to have ready for the next group that's taking some of that equipment tomorrow. We don't have enough of the Garmin and Reaches so that every person can hang on to theirs the whole time. We need all of those back each day, and then they go back out the next day. So pick it up the night before, drop it off when you get back from your trail, please.
Yep. So, and flipping those things, you'll receive a portable toilet, which is you have to have as a trail leader on every trail that we run. You'll have a spill kit, and it'll all come tidied up in a trasharoo. So when you pick up your trail leader packet, they'll give you a trasharoo that has all of that stuff in it and your Garmin inReach so that you have emergency comms.
Yep. So let's dive on the Garmin inReach. Do we have one of the quick user guides that we can show?
We don't.
Oh, good. These will come with a quick user guide that'll kind of walk you through all the so what's. The basic of it, they will stay charged and they will be given to you in a charged state. I would turn it on the morning that you're heading out on your trail ride. Turn it on before you get to the meeting spot, just so you don't forget to turn on. Power on is really easy, and the quick reference guide will walk you through that. But there's a power button right up here on the top. You're going to hold that down for, I think, 3 seconds. And then it's actually going to tell you a secondary. Go up here. It's going to be kind of backwards, but do you want to turn on? And you'll actually have to manually click over and say, I want to turn it on. Now, once it's on, these are all auto set to tracking. You don't need to do anything. So you could put this just in a good spot that's got decent visibility. Actually, a windshield's a pretty good spot, like on the dash. If you've got a little corner you can wedge it in, we don't want it flying around or, of course, hitting you in the head. Other options would be...
And I would say the ones that you pick up will have a carabiner on them. So a lot of times what I do with mine is just clip it to my headrest, and it seems to get enough. It's not great if you're trying to send a message, but it gets enough out tracking wise
for the tracking.
Yep.
So a headrest or a grab handle would be appropriate if it's not rattling too bad. Someplace safe, someplace it's going to be secure, not fall out. But that will allow autonomous tracking. So the trail boss and the Trail Cruise Moab committee back at headquarters can watch where everybody's at on the trails each day. They'll know who is assigned each different inReach. This one doesn't have a number. This is your personal one, I assume. But they'll each have a number. They'll know which one they sent you. So they have the ability to see where you're at. That way, if the committee needs to know where you're at just because, hey, we haven't heard from this trail yet, that is all being monitored behind the scenes. But also if a family member or loved one or one of your friends there at camp says, hey, I haven't heard from this group yet, can you tell me where they're at? They have the ability just to autonomously look and say, yep, they're still making their way through, they're making progress, they're moving, they're just running slow. In the event of an emergency, we can contact the InReach and vice versa. The InReach can contact out. So there is text messaging capability. They're all pre-programmed with the text, with the message, with the address you would need to use. So you could send a text message back to the trail. When you would send a text message, that's going to be non-life-threatening, non-emergency situations. Hey, we've got a broken semi-float shaft on a 40 series. Does anyone have a spare back at headquarters that we can start tracking down? Can we queue up our recovery team? We'll talk about that a little bit later, but we do have a behind-the-scenes recovery team. That would be times to use the text messaging. These do have an SOS feature on them as well, and that's activated by opening up a little side panel marked SOS, and there is a button that needs to be depressed in there. You will hold that down, and again, it will give you a confirmation signal to kick off that SOS. That doesn't mean a helicopter lands minutes later, but in Moab, they have a very phenomenal search and rescue crew and team there that does monitor that. That goes up to a mainstay dispatch that then gets distributed back to a local level based on the signal, and that will start queuing up emergency responders to come find you. That's to be used if there is a life-threatening injury or something that needs to be dealt with immediate. So I'm not going to call that a broken automobile or a broken Land Cruiser. That's going to be a human that's broken. So use that accordingly. You would also then, if you do activate that and something happens, please send the trail boss and the Cruise Moab committee a message also using the InReach. If you don't have cell service, of course, if you do, use 911. So you're using this in that scenario, but also send a message to Cruise Moab and keep us updated what's happening and why that device is being activated. So if there's any questions on InReaches, toss them in the chat. They will come with a little user guide that's like really built for me, so I can just like check punch. It's laminated. You can like slobber all over it. You won't ruin the thing, and it makes it really easy to use. So don't be intimidated by this. Just know that it's there for you to use and for your safety.
Yeah.
Moving on.
All right. So we just talked about picking up leader supplies. All right. So relevant information about the trail. So part of being a good trail leader is knowing the trail. So you should have the GPS route. You should have probably either been on the trail run before or pre-ran the trail. There's situations where it makes sense to not have to do that, but I think a good trail leader has been on the trail before. And another cool thing, and probably some of the things that the folks that landed on our list have done, is to prepare for like the cool trivial things, like what kind of flowers are in the area, and maybe some rock formation information, or just geological features, or just have something in your back pocket that if maybe folks are a little shy on the radio or something like that, and you need to get them jamming, that some quick little things that you can spout out that are fun.
Yeah, any historical tidbits, like you said, geology, wildlife, history of the trail. If there's anything you can track down, let's do some Googling ahead of time. Yeah, anything just to kind of add a little bit of levity to the trail ride throughout the day.
Absolutely. I like a lot of radio communication, just to know that people are back there and not falling asleep. So I tend to maybe overdo it on this stuff, but I love it. So I always tell them, you can turn me down, but don't turn me off.
So another leader preparedness item that can be done ahead of time and should be done the night before or days before, much like picking up your packet, is why don't you go drive over to the meeting location. If it's not one of those really far out of town ones, obviously if you're leading Elephant Hill, we don't want you to drive all the way down to the visitor center to look at the parking lot. It's there, I promise, it hasn't moved. But if you're meeting in or around Moab, it's probably not a bad idea to drive over there. In fact, we would suggest and encourage you to do so, to know where your meeting location is, and you've put eyeballs on it that week. Make sure there's not some weird construction or a whole bunch of other vehicles that look like they're parked there for good, and we need to like kind of scatter and find a different location. Just kind of have an idea of where that spot is at, and clearly know what time you're supposed to be there. If the group is supposed to depart at 9 a.m., I'm just throwing out that random number there, I think it would be best for a trail leader to be there 1 hour ahead of time, so that you will have guests and attendees start showing up, maybe 30 minutes if it's kind of one of the trails close to town, just so you can start flagging them in, get to know them, start doing introductions, kind of watching their vehicles as they come in, make sure everything looks good to go. And that way they know where to meet and can all get lined up. And that way, when that departure time comes, you're all ready to go wheels up, and you're not just then starting to kick off, or at least when you do your driver's meeting right on time.
Absolutely, yeah. And another one is like meetup locations and times would be to understand if that's an appropriate place to air down, or if you're going to be doing that somewhere else. So that's all part of pre-running the trail too, is, hey, is the meetup location the spot we air down, or is it where we start the trail? So you seeing some other,
Just put that on.
Cool. Yeah. So another thing that's specific to each trail run are your specific radio frequencies. So when you get to your meetup spot, have your radio on, ready to rock and roll. Occasionally somebody's hollering on the radio saying, gosh, I'm like 2 minutes behind, don't leave me, or something like that. So that's a good idea. And also know what specific channels, if you're running ham or if you're specifically running GMRS or FRS, just knowing what those channels are and making sure that you communicate that to the rest of the folks on your trail. Like Kurt said earlier, depending on the trail and how many people we have with us, we may do a back channel frequency. You can kind of make that up as you go. Preferably, it's not the same channel as another group that's in your area. So in your leader packet, you should have a list of trails and their respective frequencies. So you should be able to pick one pretty easily that's not a trail that's nearby you.
Sounds right.
Cool.
Any questions so far? Haven't seen anything newer in the chat in a minute. If everyone's doing good, we'll just kind of keep motoring through. But if you have any questions, or if you're one of the new ones that hopped on since we kicked off, why don't you just throw your name and if you're leading a trail or kind of what you're up to. And if you're not, you're just listening to learn more about it. That's awesome too. Trail etiquette and safety. I know we covered a couple of these. One big one that you nailed on, which is a great one, is trailhead and air down on air up areas. Not all of the meetup spots are going to be the air down area. So don't feel that it has to be. It's totally appropriate to meet in one location because that's the designated meetup spot, and say, okay, now we're going to drive whatever that time is, 10 minutes up to the trailhead, and we're actually going to do an air down. And you can even do your driver's meeting there, because some of the meetup spots aren't necessarily great to get everybody circled up and do your driver's meeting. So I would say that's something you scout out the days ahead of your trail ride, and maybe you already know based on knowing the trails really well. So totally appropriate to do it that way. And I would say just choose a spot that you can obviously get everybody safely off the road into a parking lot or on the trail, and you're not blocking the trail. We don't want to spend 30 minutes at a trailhead doing our meeting and our air down, and no other users are allowed to go. We are permitted to run all these. That comes at great expense, cost, and effort to get all the permits for a commercial group. It does not allow us exclusive use to any of these trails, meaning any other users, regardless of whether they're on foot or bike or motorcycle, ATV, side-by-side, or a 4x4, they're all certainly entitled to be on the trails as well. And the easiest option there is just to let those groups play through, because generally speaking, we're in a big group of folks out having a fun leisure day. They're almost always going to be quicker than our group is. So just, especially the trailhead, just say, hey, why don't you guys go sneak and get on the trailhead ahead of us? We're going to be a little slower than you, and make that possible right off the get-go.
Yep. So another trail etiquette, and you could say safety, are convoy rules. So whether you're communicating this during your driver's meeting or you're new to this whole aspect, traveling as a convoy is what you'll be doing out there. However, if you don't explain to people what this means, someone may get lost, and that's the safety aspect of it. So convoy rules. I want to always keep the person behind me in my rear view mirror, and I always want to see the person behind me make the turn wherever there's turns. If we do that throughout the day, the slowest vehicle will manage the speed of the convoy. Now there's some, if you have someone that's extremely slow, you may have to manage that a little bit with some radio communication, or perhaps that person's timid. You can have them go behind a person that has a similar vehicle that's driving faster. There's a whole bunch of tricks to this. We can get into that if you have questions, but the main thing is you want to go over standard convoy rules of how do we stick together as one big group. And probably the biggest way to do, the easiest way to do that is to make sure that you don't leave the person behind you behind.
Mhm. I call it the slinky method. You know, like the group will get stretched out a little bit, but we'll bunch back up at the slower portions of the trail. That's totally appropriate. Don't feel like you need to be this little trail of vehicles all 10 feet off of each other's bumpers. That's not fun for me to travel that way. Some trails that just naturally happens because they're slow speed technical trails, and that's cool. But if you're on trails that have some long dusty sections, it's okay to get spread out a little bit. But again, you hang out at the turns and you wait and make sure everybody visually identifies that. And the easy way to do that is invite all of your attendees to I always say, get to know two people today, the person in front of you and the person behind you. I hope you meet everybody on the trail, but would like you to know them by name and know what vehicle they're driving, so that at every turn, they acknowledge that you see the turn and then they proceed. You wait at that turn till the vehicle behind you comes, and everybody, it's that slinky method. We kind of all just move through together. It works out really well that way, right up until one person breaks down the system and says, oh man, I haven't seen the white 80 for a couple hours. And you're like, who's the white 80? You know, like, get to know their name. And overall, it's a total non-issue with these groups and with Cruise Moab, because so many of our attendees spend a lot of time out on the trail.
And as a trail leader, you may get out in front of the group a little bit, especially if you're going from obstacle to obstacle to obstacle. So what Kurt was saying about getting a little spread out, I always holler on the radio and say, hey, we're not leaving you behind. We're just making room for you, so that you don't have a continuous gridlock of people trying to get through obstacles, especially if there's no confusion on the trail. Like the trail is this way, there's no odd turns. Get the group moving through there and keep them moving. That'll help you manage your time easier. Mm-hmm. And then, I was gonna say, coming right up is
perfect timing. Yeah.
Communicate. Tell your group, hey, I understand that sometimes you got to pee. Sometimes you got to take a photograph of a beautiful flower or some wildlife or something. Just tell your group, hey, if you need to stop for any reason, holler on the radio and let me know, and make sure that I confirm that I heard you. That's another easy way that part of the group gets left behind, is somebody stops and in front of them doesn't know.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, next thing you know, you're split up by 5 and 10 minutes. They're waiting in a corner, worried about you, and it was just because you had to hop out and take a photo or look at a beautiful flower. Perfect timing to hop in these other ones, and that's keeping the trail clear. So again, I mentioned early on, we don't have exclusive access to any of these trails, so it is important to, if you're whenever stopping, particularly lunch breaks, any breaks you take along the trail, or even at obstacles, whenever possible, it's not always practical, but when possible, allow a way for another user from behind or oncoming to get past the Cruise Moab group. Just makes for less frustration on their behalf, and a lot of times it's nice because then we don't feel like we've got people kind of button up on the tail end of our group that are stressed out wanting to get by. So if you can always let them work their way through, works out. One way to do that too, especially if they're behind you, that's something your tail gunner is going to announce and say, hey, we've got some faster moving traffic coming up behind us. A lot of times the way that we'll easily solve that is say, hey, let's just let them play through. So the tail gunner will let them know that, hey, as and when it's appropriate, and we can do it on the trail without you having to drive off the trail or our group having to, we'll let you one by one cherry pick your way through our group. And just the tail gunner will announce that, hey, the gentleman in the blue Tacoma is not with our group, and they're gonna be working their way through. And just everybody, when they see them in the rearview mirror, knows to find an ethical spot and appropriate spot to pull over, let them by, and then our group stays together.
Yep, absolutely.
Easy way to solve that.
Yep. So keeping the trail clear for other users. The next thing up is pulling far enough past an obstacle. So as a trail leader, you want to make sure that you leave plenty of room for the folks behind you to stack up. So this is where, if you have a mid gunner or you are utilizing your tail gunner, say you're at an obstacle and you're out as a trail leader spotting folks up. And we'll talk about spotting in a minute, so this isn't a spotting exercise, but pull forward however many car lengths you need to. So call it 20 car lengths. And when you think you've pulled forward enough, pull forward a little bit further and get out and spot. To keep things moving, if the folks on your group are comfortable with your gunner spotting, get half or 2/3 of the group through and stacked up behind you, get back in your truck and let your gunner handle the rest of the group. And that will help you manage time throughout the day.
Yeah, great one. Matt, I just see you hopped in there. I agree. Matt said the nice changes on the waiver protocol, 100% agree. The hope is that it's just easier for trail leaders. It's also more accurate because it's all done ahead of time and participants are on their own. And I really hope it saves time at the trailhead, so it's not 15, 20 minutes getting everybody signed in. It could just be, you can just get down to the fun stuff, which is talking about the trail you're going to do. So it looks like you're leading a couple and gunning Cocopelli. So awesome. Thanks for jumping in. Okay, let's get back to, we talked about the alternate radio for the gunner, keeping the trail clear. 3 strikes. Yep, that's a big one. In addition to keeping the obstacle clear so that everybody has room, you don't have to keep playing this run back to your cars and move forward so that there's enough room for the next group to come up the obstacle. The other one is, what do you do at obstacles if somebody's having a hard time making it up? You got some flexibility as the trail leader on this one. If you're running ahead of schedule and everyone's having the time of their life, it's okay to try as many times as it takes to let somebody get up an obstacle. But if you've got, like most trail rides, a long day ahead of you, and everyone wants to get back to camp and get back to the raffle and the festivities and the vendor show, it's good to just kick right off in the morning and say, we're going to have a 3 strikes obstacle rule, meaning everybody gets 3 attempts at an obstacle. And if you can't make it up in 3 attempts within reason, let's have you take the bypass if available, or we're going to have a truck, or you would have your vehicle or the vehicle in front of them set up to do a quick pull with maybe a strap, or there are some circumstances where like having a winch truck set up would make sense. So you got some discretion as the trail leader to do that. But if the trail's already been kind of running a little long, you had a great lunch, but now it's time to get moving, you still got a lot of trail to do. It's important to just make that very clear, communicate with that group. Nobody's going to be offended. They're always welcome to come back later or the next day or do their own thing and try that obstacle. But to manage everyone having a good time so that even if one person doesn't get to try 100 times at the obstacle, I think it's important just to communicate that. Yeah.
So awesome stuff. Kind of the next thing safety-wise is we don't leave people behind. As a trail leader, it is not, I won't go as far as say it's your responsibility to make sure everyone gets back to headquarters, but it's your job to try and convince people that it's okay to leave their truck if it's broken and we'll come get it later. But we don't want to leave people behind. Leaving vehicles behind is okay, but we don't want to leave people behind. We have a whole staff that's volunteered to help get trucks off the trail, help manage recoveries, that kind of stuff. So you can use that to help encourage folks to hop in with someone else and go. One thing we don't want to do is hold up the group for 2.5 or 3 hours trying to get somebody's truck, back on the trail or rolled back over or replacing a whatever, XYZ. However, if that person wants to hop in and ride with you, or perhaps maybe their passenger wants to hop in and maybe your trail gunner and that person wants to work on replacing their Burfield or something and catching back up with the rest of the trail, you can help facilitate all of these decisions as a trail leader. But big thing is don't leave any humans behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big one. As Jackson mentioned, there's a group that's in charge and will do their best to solve getting a vehicle off the trail later. I know it's always unsettling to leave your vehicle, but just know that we'll do our best to solve that later on. As the trail leader, I think the easy way to solve that is if there is a breakdown and everyone needs troubleshooting and you've got 20 people with 20 different tool sets. Sorry, I'm back. 20 people, 20 different tool sets, troubleshooting the problem. Awesome. And I would just give yourself a time. Say, hey guys, if we have this moving in 30 minutes, let's do it. If it's not moving in 30 minutes, let's just say we're going to park it here. Let's start looking for rides. And in the meantime, you can be doing that and make sure that everybody gets off the trail and we'll come back and get the vehicle later on. It doesn't happen often. This isn't a crazy frequent occurrence, but it does happen. So just know, don't be afraid to say we need to leave that rather than the entire group not getting back till 10 o'clock at night, because it'd be better to have one person a little unsettled about leaving their vehicle than 20 people really upset that their trail ride took 14 hours.
Agreed.
Leave it at
all that stuff. And you mentioned something that probably should have covered earlier, which is it's always awesome for your group to know how long they're supposed to stay at a spot. So if there's a beautiful overlook, say, hey, it's 3 o'clock. We're going to be bugging out of here at 3:20. I'll give you a 5-minute warning at 3:15.
Yep.
And we'll saddle up. Once you hear my truck start, that means we're serious about leaving. So feel free to call that stuff out on the radio. That will help you manage your time throughout the day.
Yep. It looks like we have a whole bunch of folks hopping on. A handful, I think, that saw the text message that came out. And so just to answer a couple questions, Scott, you said which trails is this for? This is for all trails. So we're just talking through what it takes to be a trail leader and the things you're expected as to be a trail leader. If you're not going to be a trail leader this year, that's fine. Hang on and listen in and chime in. Totally welcome. Maybe you'll be a trail leader in the future. We'll talk some other Cruise Moab logistics too.
Heck yeah.
Cool.
What do we got?
Bathroom breaks.
Yeah. So this just comes back. So bathroom breaks comes back to communication. Man, tell your groups, they're all adults. They need to go to the bathroom. They need to go to the bathroom. So just tell them, holler on the radio, say, I got to take a 10-100. If you are going to plan as a trail leader, I try to think of the good bathroom breaks. Obviously, there's women on our trail that don't like to just pee in the wide open desert. So if you can make a break for them, number one is okay out in the desert as long as we're not traipsing and trompsing over a bunch of biological soil or artifacts. But number two goes in your emergency kit. Mm-hmm. So I always say, when I'm a trail leader, I say, hey, you packed it in, you're packing it out. So they'll go in a wag bag and they'll put it wherever they need to put it. But as far as bathroom breaks go, number one, totally cool. Try to find a place where there's some coverage. And for number twos, same, try to find a place with some coverage, but they're using your porta toilet.
Yeah, so we chimed in on that earlier. That will come in your trail leader packet. That's kind of part of the goods you're going to get the night before your trail, is that bathroom kit. That's it's a very simple kit. Maybe pop it out the day before and just understand what's there, but it's a toilet seat with bags. You, just to reemphasize what Jackson's saying, offer that up because you're under no obligation to carry out what they put in the bag. We would just ask that, and those bags are very sanitary. It's not a horrible way to do it, but we would just ask that if you use the bathroom, this is for the attendees of your trail, they're expected to carry that out with them. It's not your job to pack their stuff out. So I wouldn't. So it's on them. Doesn't get used too often, but sometimes nature calls and you need to have that. So that's something to discuss at your driver's meeting in the morning, is that you have that, and that's what has to be used per our permit. And that's just what's environmentally and ethically appropriate out on the trails we're going to be on. Now, that's something to think about, is that if you have a trail that you're going to end at a different location than the start, or even if you are ending at the same location to start, let folks know if you've got toilets or bathrooms at those spots, because maybe that will inspire them to hang out a little bit or be less stressed about it. Like the San Rafael Swell, we do have a restroom. It's a primitive vault toilet not far from camp. So you call it going to the Swayzes. It gets a lot of workout in the morning before the trail and at the afternoon after the trail. But because of that, people kind of always know there's going to be a bathroom and where that's located at. Just make that clearly advertised. Not all trails have any commodes, any of that available nearby. I think some of the Elephant Hill trails, like the Trailhead, and that's kind of it. Not even allowed to use the ones in the campgrounds, right?
Not in the campgrounds. Actually, you can use the one in the campgrounds. You just can't drive back there.
So you got to walk back.
Right after Devil's Pocket, the Narrows, there's a little pull off. So if you need to use a bathroom, we pull off there and you hoof it back to the bathroom. Otherwise, there's a bathroom at Chesler Park and at the Confluence site.
Okay, we're gonna answer a couple questions here. Neil, yes, you can use the restroom now. It's officially a restroom break for Neil Quigley. Is this a secure chat? Absolutely, no reporters. This is just our internal group, and we're not going to say anything too crazy here. And yes, the entire video will be shared. It's all being recorded, so it will be shared afterwards, so you can catch the beginning for those that didn't do it. And somebody said, I don't remember what all I'm running. No biggie. Enjoy. Come have a great Cruise Moab. Mountain Daylight Time. Yeah, we should just get rid of daylight savings times. Looks like that threw some people off. Apologize about that. Okay, let's keep rolling on.
Yeah, sounds good. This should be pretty obvious by now, but no booze for you as a trail leader, unless you really need it. No, I'm just kidding.
Zero.
I'm teasing. Or any other mind-altering substances. And something to always say in your trail meeting is no booze on the trail. Save that stuff for when we get back to camp. Next up is don't get in over your head as a trail leader. This can mean a whole lot of things. We're super lucky at Cruise Moab in that more often than not, there are some incredibly experienced people that are on our trail runs with us. So if you're a trail leader and somebody pipes up during a situation, don't assume that they don't know what they're talking about. Maybe take in what they're saying and see if they can help. But number one thing is, as a trail leader, don't get in over your head. So if you're like, hey, this is outside of my scope of practice, maybe there's somebody on the trail that can help you. Otherwise, you can always relay back to camp. If it's an emergency, obviously get a hold of emergency services. It's not expected that you'll right a vehicle that flops in Hell's Gate. that's their responsibility. As a driver, that's their responsibility. If you're okay doing that, by all means, pitch in, help get them out. But if you're not experienced in the situation that you're in, don't feel like you need to solve the problem. Go find backup.
Yeah, simply put, being a fantastic trail leader doesn't mean you have to be, I said this earlier on, but I want to emphasize it because it comes up a lot that people are worried about volunteering for a trail because of this. Being a fantastic trail leader doesn't mean you have to be world's greatest mechanic, a trail welder, an expert recovery guy with all the tools, all the gear, everything in your vehicle. Doesn't mean that at all. We have solutions for all that behind the scenes. So don't put the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Exactly. And then what's our friend Bill always says, dead guide is no guide at all. So drink water, keep yourself hydrated, keep yourself, as a trail leader, keep yourself, keep the food coming in, keep the water coming in, keep yourself in good shape. And so that's it. Drink water, drink water, drink water, drink water.
Another thing that you could do as a trail leader, not a bad idea, to grab a case of water, have an extra case of water in your vehicle above and beyond what you need for yourself, because you're going to be the first one that encounters other groups on the trail if they're oncoming or you're coming up on slow traffic. Could be a mountain biker group, could be other users, and it's really kind to offer them some water. Can make diffuse a situation of a bunch of vehicles wanting to pass a group that's out hiking or some people on bike if you offer them some cold waters out of a fridge or out of your cooler. And so you have those for other participants in your own group that may have just forgotten to bring enough water for Moab. Moab's a temperament little place that time of year. April can be 100 degrees or it could be snowing. We've had both of those at Cruise Moabs over the years. So you just don't know what the conditions are going to be like. You've also got a lot of guests and attendees that may have come from sea level or come from a lot warmer climates or colder, could go either way. And the temperature and the elevation can get to them. So hydration is usually the key to solving most of those problems.
Agreed. All right, so we got tread lightly.
Yep. Neil, great question. A great point on spotting, and we're going to touch on that one in just one more segment. We're going to talk about spotting, and we'll touch exactly on your point.
Yep. So treading lightly. Number one in Moab is that our permit doesn't give us any special rights to drive off of the trail. So no matter what, we try to respect everything that's around us. And that goes for the people that we might meet on the trail. So as a trail leader, especially this time of year, you're going to probably encounter another group that is still not licensed to necessarily pull off the trail. If something happens and we meet another group and we have to let them by or we need to get by, this is often a kind of a negotiation with their trail leader, which is who's going to back up and let the other group by. And when I say back up, move to an appropriate spot. There's some nuanceical stuff if you're familiar with trail leadership out in the Moab area, but for the most part, we want to find like a sand wash or a pull-off that's been used before, or maybe a parking spot, something where we can get part of our group or all of our group in and let the other group pass by, or vice versa. And generally speaking, I say negotiation because often the easiest spot is for them to back up 100 yards or something like that. On certain trails that get used a lot, we may have to actually go off trail, peel the group off trail 90 degrees onto and do the least amount of damage that you absolutely can. The group that's going uphill technically has the right of way. So keep that in mind as you're working through stuff. However, we always want to try to find a compromise that is doing the least amount of damage as possible. If you're leading a national park run, there is no leeway for this. You can only pull off in areas where resource damage cannot be done. So that's like a rock wash or a sand wash or a parking area. You can't control what the other group does that you meet. You can only control yourself. Throughout the years, or control your group. Throughout the years, we have a pretty pristine relationship with the BLM, State Trust Lands, and National Park Service of being very respectful. And we want to keep it that way because that keeps us able to get permits in these wonderful areas. So if it feels wrong, it probably is wrong when it comes to this kind of stuff. You want to roll through that?
Yeah, it's worth it on Tread Lightly. Let's just run through the tread principles. Each of the letters of the word tread. Tread Lightly is a fantastic organization. Each of those means something. Travel responsibly. Jackson kind of always chat about that. dove into that pretty good. Respect the rights of others. Just want to point out again, we don't have exclusive access to these trails. So if there are other user groups, regardless if they're on foot, bicycle, horseback's unlikely in Moab, but could happen, or other motorized vehicles, best to find an amicable solution to let them pass you or let them play through if they're a faster moving group. Educate yourself. That's kind of just knowing where you can and can't be, where the actual trail is, so that you're not out there trying to break new trail with a giant group of people behind you. Avoid sensitive areas. No brainer. Stay off the cryptobiotic soil down in that neck of the woods. And the D is do your part. So do all of those things above, and you have conquered the tread lightly portion.
Absolutely.
Okay, spotting
stuff. Yeah, so spotting. This isn't a spotting exercise. This is about some tips and tricks while you're on the trail. Throughout the years, I've found that your group tends to go faster if you offer a spot to people that want a spot and allow people that don't want a spot to drive through. So for me, as a Cruise Moab trail leader, number one thing is asking people if they would like a spot. I always say, like, flash your headlights at me, give me a thumbs up out the window, honk your horn, don't really care. Just let me know that you would like a spot through this obstacle. And I also tell them, if you don't want me to spot me or spot you, that's totally fine. If you would rather have your passenger spot you, absolutely. There's no heartbreak there. Don't feel as a trail leader that it's your responsibility to spot every single person through. Mm-hmm. That's totally the driver's call. One spotter at a time, always. If anyone's ever been on a trail on a hard obstacle and had 16 people yelling at them what to do, they understand this principle very well. But this is definitely something to cover in your driver's meeting. Mm-hmm. You want to hop on? Oh, be sure spotter and driver understand spotter signals.
Yeah, that's it. There's no Cruise Moab designated spotter signals. That's going to be up to the spotter and the driver to communicate what those are going to be. Some people want to use audible signals. Some people are totally comfortable just doing hand signals. We're going to leave that at your piece. But if you are spotting and it's somebody that you haven't spent time on the trail with, you're the trail leader, they've said, hey, I'd love you to spot me up this obstacle. Why don't you go have a quick little 30-second powwow with them at the driver's door with the window down, and tell them how you're going to be spotting and where you're going to be standing when you do it, and just come up with some clear expectations there. Spotting, as many of you know, can be a much longer conversation and a whole art and science in and of itself, but don't make it too complicated. To Jackson's point, if they don't want a spot, you're under no obligation. Probably shouldn't be giving them one because they want to just try driving an obstacle, or maybe they've got somebody in their own vehicle that's going to be they're going to be doing that. So personally, I like big, loud, audible signals. I want them to have their music turned off. I want them to have their windows down, hands on the wheel, so that we can just be talking it through. That just lets them kind of concentrate on more and lets me kind of concentrate on more. But if you like hand signals, that's awesome.
Yep. Another common thing I see with spotting, I do like
big. Noted, yeah. Jackson likes big. I like both, but audible backed up by some big, wide hand signals.
We were just talking about this at the pre-run, and that I am way too dyslexic to audibly give left and rights. Okay. I will inevitably tell someone to go the wrong direction. So I'm a very silent spotter. This way, whatever. But I have found throughout the years that there's this crazy phenomenon that when people are backing up, they tend to turn in the opposite direction that you're pointing. So when I have my little powwow, I always tell them, always, no matter what, turn the steering wheel in the direction that I point. Maybe you've had this experience. Maybe I'm just the unlucky one. But if anyone has any specific questions about spotting, please throw them up in here.
I see a couple. One is the safety word is stop. While it's only one person's job, and please, if you're the designated spotter, be as loud and vocal as you need to be. If you're just there to spectate, you're there to enjoy watching somebody else going up an obstacle, kind of keep chatter to a minimum. Don't be distracting them, and certainly don't be giving them additional instructions. You could maybe be mentioning something to the spotter, especially if it's a safety related item, but let's not have 5 people coaching. Jackson mentioned that. It's kind of like the boat ramp theory where everybody's telling everybody what to do. It just doesn't work. It turns into melee. But everybody has the responsibility or the ability to yell stop. If they see something that's going to be dangerous, perhaps life-threatening or dangerous to a vehicle, everybody can yell stop, and I think everyone should lock down on the brakes. The driver should completely put the vehicle in a safe spot and then chat with the spotter about what's happening there. I think I saw Rob. Rob mentioned hand signals for the number of vehicles. Yeah, we kind of skipped over that, but I think we may have it down later. But let's touch on that one because we've been talking a lot about trail leader duties. When you pass or when you approach oncoming traffic, Doesn't matter if they're on foot, bike, motorcycle, ATV, side-by-side, 4x4. It's a great idea to give them a hand signal. If they don't want to talk to you, like if you're just passing in a wider spot, give them a quick hand signal of how many people are in the group. That's not a Cruise Moab principle. That's not a tread lightly principle. It's just a good human principle of trail users. I wish everybody did it. Now, you're likely going to have 20 vehicles behind you, up to perhaps. That's not easy to communicate 20 with a hand signal. So I just do like this, give them like, no, they're going to know, hey, there's a lot. Ask your tail gunner to do the exact same thing, let him know he's last and give him a solid fist. And your mid gunner and other attendees in your group could all start giving them a countdown as well. Hopefully they tell us. And even if they don't, the trail leader can say, hey, you've got 3 side-by-sides coming at you. You've got 3 Jeeps heading your way, etc., so that we all kind of have a good, clear understanding. So great point, Rob. Thanks for bringing that up.
Absolutely. I would say with a big group, I always try to get their attention and have just like a 2-second chat with them. Mm-hmm. That's generally smoother for everyone, but sometimes they don't want to, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, wide trails, it's not a big deal. Yeah. You're going to be passing somebody, just let them know, hey, you got a couple vehicles coming at you in the dust. When it's tight trails, it's best if you can have a conversation with them, especially if there's 2 or 3 of them, and just say, hey, if you'd be willing to park it right here. If you ask nicely, a lot of times they're going to say, yeah, it sounds way better to park here for 3 minutes than it does to try and pass 20 of you back there. So you could kind of give them the little sales pitch that it's going to be better for everybody that way.
Yep.
Cool.
So
if there's any other questions or comments or thoughts on spotting or anything else we've covered all throughout, throw them in the chat there and we'll talk them. I see gloves. Yeah, absolutely. That's actually number 2 it's on recovery, but awesome for spotting. If you're a spotter, you're out on foot, like PPEs are going to be mandatory. I think it's important that you've got good boots on. You're not out there spotting in flip-flops, and you're not like running up and down the obstacles and in and over the rocks in a set of flip-flops. And a set of gloves would be a fantastic idea too, because you're going to possibly be moving and stacking rocks. You're going to be possibly climbing up things to scale your way up to a good visible spot that has you in a safe position. So yeah, absolutely protect your digits. Good call, guys.
100%.
Cool. Recovery.
Recovery.
Yeah.
So again, this isn't a recovery demo. This is kind of like how to manage the situation when it comes up. So like we said before, as a trail leader, it is not your responsibility to be a recovery expert. Somebody that has significant experience might be on your run. It's going to be up to you to make the call on whether you want that to go down, essentially. Mm-hmm. But understand your limitations here and make sure that you are okay with what's happening. For really serious recoveries, it might be something where you say, hey, for the the interest of the group, we're going to come back and deal with that later. And you move on. You let headquarters know. Maybe spend some time coordinating back and forth to get that group mobile, but it's not necessarily your responsibility to hold up the entire group for hours while you figure out how to recover a vehicle.
Gloves if you're helping, so anyone that's got hands on any equipment, moving rocks, stacking, not necessarily the recovery, but if you're doing anything around a stuck vehicle, make sure all the protection is in place as well. As a trail leader, do your best to kind of encourage that. You're not there to necessarily enforce that with an iron fist, but I would heavily encourage it verbally. You're not, not there to be anybody's parent, but do your best. Yeah. Big things are just putting a plan together. If a vehicle is stuck, decide whether it makes sense to solve that right then and there. Kind of beat that up pretty good. If you do decide you're going to do a recovery, recoveries are a lot like the boat ramp as well, that suddenly you can have 20 different people giving a whole lot of input during a recovery. So just like a driver spotter engagement, I would make it very clear who's on your recovery team when that's happening and who is welcome to watch from a safe and distant spot, but kindly ask them, hey, please don't be shouting anything or giving any input because we're going to be trying to do some delicate recovery. And that would be a scenario where maybe you are winching a vehicle that's had a light flop back onto its wheels, or maybe you're just bringing somebody up an obstacle. Make sure everybody's out of the way and come up with that plan, share the plan with your group and execute upon it.
Yep. And so, brings up a good point. We touched on it a little bit earlier, which is it's totally and perfectly fine to utilize your tail gunner to help either facilitate these situations or help get that person back to camp or, help coordinate these things while you as the leader take the rest of the group on up through the trail. Be sure that you know who the next person in line is and make sure they're okay with being the tail gunner. If something's not okay there, you can swap those folks out with someone who is.
That's perfect. If you are making a split, probably send that as a message. In fact, not probably, just send that as a text message to the Cruise Moab through the in-reach. We talked all about that. We did mention that. Totally fine to say, hey, I'm going to continue out with the bulk of the trail group, and these 4, including our tail gunner, are going to stay on site, solve this problem. They've got plenty of vehicles, food, fuel, water. If they need to leave the vehicle, that's totally fine. Don't enforce that, like, hey, everybody has to leave all at once. It's best if everyone can, then you go back for the vehicle. But if a group of 3 or 4 want to stay and they think they can get it fixed or recovered, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Someone else. Medical conditions, yeah, we did talk about that, but it's worth talking about in our driver's meeting, which is coming up here soon. Those are one of the items we'll touch on. So good point there.
Yep. So let me scan up here really quick.
Emergencies, comms, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we got all that stuff coming up.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep.
All right. So if there's any specific recovery questions, post them up here. Again, there's a group that is volunteered to help coordinate that type of stuff. With a trailer, etc. Just get a hold of Cruise Moab HQ, and they can help you facilitate it. All right, so the big one, your driver's meeting that you're going to have right before you head out on the trail. So this is your time to set expectations for the day, get everybody on the same page as to kind of when you'll be stopping for lunch, different things you might be stopping for, how long the trail is expected to take, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to go through all of these types of things. But number one, I always start with is a good introduction. Get everybody on your trail to kind of loosen up a little bit and introduce themselves, including yourself. If you need a question to break the ice, ask them how many Cruise Moabs they've been to and what their favorite tire is, or come up with some trivial thing to ask. It's always a fun icebreaker.
Sounds great. I'm sure Jackson's trails are a lot of fun. I'm with you on the, I don't ask their favorite tire size or tire question, but yeah, identify the trail leaders. So introduce not only yourself, but who is going to be the mid gunner if you have one, and the tail gunner, and not just who they are and what their name is, what they're driving, just so that everyone in the trail, even if they're kind of end up in the middle of the pack, they kind of understand that, man, if I see the trail gunner's vehicle pass me at any point today, something's not right and I'm not where I need to be. So identify who all those are, and it's great to do a round of introductions, as you mentioned, let everybody kind of say maybe where they came from, what they're driving. That's kind of a good mental note spot for the trail leader to understand what kind of vehicles you're going to have on the trail that day. And you could even ask them to share a little bit about their experience for those more technical trails to understand, hey, I've got a couple that said they're pretty new to this and they're beginners. They've got pretty built rigs. Obviously, they met the minimum vehicle requirements to get on that trail. And that would be a great idea to invite them. And you don't need to do it in front of the whole group, but maybe right after the driver's meeting, a lot more to cover, but invite them to be right behind the trail leader up front. So it's a little easier for you to help them and spot them up some of those spots, but also keep an eye on them as well so that you just know that they're doing okay. And I don't think anyone that admits or will say they're a beginner, we're all beginners and we're all still learning a lot too. I don't think any of them will be upset if you say, hey, I'd love to have you just kind of maybe be in the first couple vehicles nearby me so that we can help you get through some of those more difficult spots. Rob, I see you brought up Slinky. We did touch on Slinky earlier, but we'll bring that up again as we talk about the introductions, or we can hammer on some of those. So anything you think we missed or we did miss, or you got a good idea, keep throwing them in there and we'll keep touching on them.
Absolutely. So not necessarily during your driver's meeting, but pre-driver's meeting, maybe while everyone's airing down or while folks are meeting up at the trail. As a leader, make a little round and make sure that the vehicles that you see are appropriate for the trail you're about to do. So, if you're leading Cliffhanger and you see a stock 3rd Gen 4Runner on 31-inch tires, you might be like, oh, hey, you might want to go back to HQ and find a different trail to run today.
Yeah, or maybe find them a seat in one of the other vehicles and say, why don't you, this thing's going to get destroyed today. Why don't we leave it behind? That's a great thing to do. I mentioned being at your meeting spot like an hour early or at least 30 minutes early before everything's supposed to kick off. Watch those vehicles as they come in. It's not your job to be the safety inspection police by any stretch, but if there's one that looks like, man, this thing's going to be lucky to make it through the trail and back to camp, that's when you kick that problem right off in the morning and solve it then. Don't wait for it to fester and become a big issue. And you're going to know those vehicles. We all know that vehicle that scares all of us, and we're all worried whether it's going to make it back. But you can also start looking at those vehicles, and Neil brought this up, so a great spot is, hey, let's put some of the 80s together if it's on a technical trail that they can watch an experienced driver in the front. And if there's a couple maybe newer owners that are in an 80 series, they could be right behind a very light vehicle or a similarly built vehicle and watch which line they take or how they approach and engage an obstacle. That's really helpful to do. It's not always helpful to watch a 40 series wind their way through SOB Hill on Canyonlands and then a long bed Tundra tries to take the same line. It's just simply not going to work, right? It's best to kind of pair up those like vehicles if they are maybe newer to trail rides or newer to off-roading, they're not comfortable with their vehicle. Make that suggestion to them. Hey, why don't you follow behind so-and-so because, you know, she's a rock star and she owns this trail every time she does it. She would be a perfect one to follow. That's a great way to conquer that before it becomes an issue.
Absolutely. And also, if you are looking over the vehicles and you see one that's leaking something or something looks really bad, something's really bent, something that you're not comfortable with, it's your prerogative to say, hey, why don't you hop in with somebody else and we'll leave that truck behind. I always, at my driver's meeting, also say, hey, if anyone's had any issues with their trucks and they think they've fixed it, but just let me know so we can look out for it today while we're on the trail.
Yep. So we beat up comms pretty earlier about identifying what GRMS frequency you're going to be on our channel or which ham frequency if your group happens to be all ham users. The official accepted communication device of Cruise Moab is now the GRMS radio.
Yeah.
So we would ask, certainly as a trail leader, you have one of those. I think it would be a great idea for you to have 2 or 3 of those, especially if you have battery powered units that could go dead. You're going to spend a lot more time talking on your radio as a trail leader than you generally ever will as a participant, unless you're in Jackson's group and they're talking about their favorite tire or something on the trail all day. But generally, you're going to burn through. So it's possible even in a single day to burn through the battery on a handheld radio. So have a spare. It's also nice to have a spare to be able to hand somebody in your group that may have forgotten their radio or they've got one that's just not working or their battery goes dead. They're so inexpensive these days. I can't remember if a vendor is going to be there this year selling any. I know it's been talked about.
Yeah.
There's been some deals. If somebody knows, if someone chimes in, Cobra or Midland, or I know that we've had some rugged or had some deals in the past, chime in on that. But it's a great idea to keep a couple spares around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that covers comms, emergencies. So back to, I can't remember who mentioned it earlier. Maybe it was Neil. So emergencies obviously have a plan. There's a bunch of emergency communication information in your leader packet. Of course, it's always a great idea in your trail leader or in your driver's meeting to ask one, does anyone with us have specialized medical training? If you're not comfortable saying it in front of the group, let me know. And 2, does anyone have any medical conditions that could come up? And if you're not comfortable saying it in the group and you want to let me know in private, by all means. Both good pieces of information to have as a trail leader.
Yep. That's a great thing to do in the driver's meeting first off, and maybe even emphasize throughout the day. If anyone looks like they're kind of having a rough, you don't need to call them out by person, but that's something to pull somebody aside and just make sure everything's going okay. If they look like they're not hydrated enough or making some weird decisions, that's kind of something a trail leader should be watching for, is the health and safety of their entire group.
Absolutely. So explain the route on the rough itinerary. I kind of covered this earlier, but yeah, let folks know, especially if you're going to do something different than is typical. So if you go out on Poison Spider, there's about 5 different ways that you can connect up Poison Spider and Golden Spike and Where Eagles Dare, et cetera, et cetera. Let the group know kind of what you're going to do and when you'll be at lunch. That's the main one, because everybody wants to eat lunch. When are we going to eat? But give them a heads up, hey, we're going to be on trail. We're going to stop and check out a cool overlook. Ideally, that'll happen around XYZ time. We'll have lunch probably around 12:30. This does 2 things. 1, folks like to hear that information just so they have a rough idea of when they'll get back to camp. 2, it helps you if the group's moving really slow or you have a really slow person in the group. It helps you sort of get people to move along. Hey, when the going's easy, we're going to boogie. And when it's tough and there's an obstacle, we're going to slow down, make sure everyone gets through. If we do that, we'll get to check out this cool overlook at 9:30 a.m. and then we'll be right on time for lunch at 12:30. And you can use that on the radio to keep your group moving.
All great. So some of these are items we made a little list, and I don't know if you want to share this as our little bullet point list of things to talk about in the driver's meeting. Some of them we already talked about as expectations of a trail leader, but they're also worth mentioning in the trail leader meeting. So emergency comms, safety, looking over vehicles, introductions. Another big one is tread lightly. Even if you don't need to be a tread lightly master trainer to quickly give a nice little description of what tread lightly is and why it's important that we are practicing tread lightly to your entire group. I think that every trail leader should do that in their driver's meeting, just to kind of reinforce that we're not going to be driving off the trail. We're not going to be parking in inappropriate places. If we talk about what's going to happen during that passing, that's worth mentioning in the driver's meeting and throughout the day once again. Trail etiquette and safety.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's another thing that you cover in your driver's meeting. We kind of beat it to death a little bit earlier today, or earlier in this little webinar, but definitely cover that stuff in your meeting. One of the things I like to do is once everybody does their introduction is poll the group, say like, hey, what do you guys think are some ground rules that are going to keep us safe and keep everybody moving today? And the group tends to come up with most of the big hitters that keep the group moving and keep us safe. So I don't know, it seems like it helps more get people involved in owning it if they do it as a group versus me just being the fun police up front with my finger pointing.
Yeah, Scott mentioned that trail leader and time management is crucial, and it's absolutely true. It's nothing's more frustrating, I think, as an attendee than being told that this trail we're going to have lunch at 12 or 12:30, and you don't have lunch till 2 because just everything's taken so long, or that hey, we're going to be back to Moab by 6 and you don't get back till 7 or 8. Now things happen. That's life. Things happen on the trail. But if that took place because just everybody spent a whole lot of time playing on every obstacle, or you had a hour and a half, 90-minute lunch because, just everyone seemed to be having a great time, that I get it. And that's true. But I like Jackson's approach of just being very vocal about that. I try to do the same. Hey, we're just pulling into lunch now. The time is 12:15. Let's go wheels up at 1:15. And at 12:10, I'm in my vehicle with my key on in the ignition and maybe even starting to do a little bit of a slow roll out of the lunch spot. Just try and keep the things on schedule. That's the hardest thing to do, I think, as a trail leader, is keep everybody motivated 100%. To get moving. Because we're cruiser heads. Once we get out of the vehicle, all we want to do is chit chat and look at this and look at that and poke underneath everybody else's hoods and enjoy the sun if the weather's nice. So that is tough. And Scott, great point. Time management is essential. Neil mentioned, and we hit on that one a little earlier, but the 3 strikes and you're out. That's where you stand to lose the most time, is everybody's out of their vehicles watching at an obstacle and you're letting that 3 strikes kind of fade away. And next thing you know, each vehicle's taken 10 or 15 minutes to make it through a real technical spot. Hey, that's great if you have the time and you should know the trail enough to understand that works. But if you've got a long trail day and now 20 trucks have just taken 10 minutes each, you do the quick math and you could be an hour or 2 hours behind. So kind of keep that in mind and don't be afraid to say 3 strikes, you're out. Let's hurry and strap you up and let the next one get ready.
Absolutely. And if someone needs to jump out and do something, I try to do my best to hop on the radio and be like, hey, Rodney's got to tighten something up on his spare tire. Just hang out in your trucks, and as soon as Rodney jumps back in, we'll keep boogieing. Because inevitably, if one person gets out of their truck and there's no communication, everybody wants to get out of their truck. And those can be huge time sucks as well.
That's true. It's like herding cats. Once everyone gets out of the vehicles, getting everyone back into their appropriate vehicle can be tough.
Especially, yeah.
So
anyways, and then roll call. If somebody is running late and they're going to keep the group from moving, but they said, hey, I'm going to be there in 2 minutes, that's totally acceptable to hang out, wait until they catch up. If it's somebody or somebody that knows the trail, just say, hey, man, meet us on the way out there or something like that. That's also appropriate. However, if there's no call, no show, and you've waited till you're supposed to leave, and you have everybody that your list says you should have minus a couple of people, you could try reaching out to them. But for me, I'm always like, let's leave on time, unless somebody calls and says, hey, I'm running 3 minutes behind or 5 minutes behind. Then we can wait up for them. But
yep, totally agree.
Boogie on out on time.
Yeah, he or she may never show up, so you may have a whole group waiting in a parking lot. Everyone's bored out of their mind, waiting to get the day kicked off and actually get on the trail, and you're waiting for someone that's not going to show up. So don't feel like you can't leave to hit the trail or leave your meeting spot till you have everybody on the list. Just leave on time, maybe give them a few minutes. To Jackson's point, if you have a cell number for them, Sometimes we provide that. That's provided in the trail leader information, so you can try that real quick. Maybe ask your tail gunner to do that while you're doing the meeting. Reach out to that person, but otherwise just get moving on the day, because like Scott mentioned, it's so easy to let time get behind you. Next thing you know, you're just chasing the clock the whole day. And that's a frustrating spot to be in as a trail leader, because you did everything you were supposed to, and now you're already running late because your group hasn't shown up. So just don't let it happen, and just kick off.
And then the last thing on roll call is the people that are actually there. There's a small chance they won't match the list that you have. You can make trail changes on the app almost real time. So the main important thing is to make sure the people are there that are supposed to be there. And if somebody comes up and says, hey, I changed my trail, chances are they probably did. The only time that this becomes a real big bugaboo is if we're over our allotted number on the trail. So the main ones will be the national parks. So under no circumstances are you allowed to go on the trail with more trucks than you're allowed. So both runs are 10 vehicles. That includes the leader and the gunner. So total number of vehicles on the trail is 10. If somebody rolls up and says, hey, I want to go on the Arches run today, and you have a full group and they didn't swap properly, unfortunately, that person can't go with you. Now, I'll throw this out there and say, as a trail leader, it's not your job to be the police. That for Cruise Moab, the participants are the people that are between the leader and the gunner. If that person's prerogative is to go and do it, and they're behind the group and they're not associated, you have no authority to tell them they can't do that, because they're all public trails. Both Arches and Elephant Hill require permits to do it recreationally, so it'll be on them. But just know that it is not appropriate in either of the national parks to have more than 10 vehicles, period.
Yep, nailed that one. Good. Awesome. We got through ground rules. Things to do throughout the day, just to kind of keep your group moving and keep everybody having fun, is encourage comms on the radio. I'd say that within reason. Some people may get annoyed if it's just chatter the whole time, and you have a hard time even passing along critical information like, hey, make this left turn. Of course, we're doing the slinky rule and we're working our way through that. But it's great to have chatter throughout the day too. And you can inspire that as the trail leader by talking about things that are upcoming, and use that as a great opportunity before an obstacle. You know where it's at. You've pre-ran the trail. You know you're coming up to, like, I'm going to use the swell. You're coming up to the Devil's Backbone, the Devil's Racetrack. You can easily say, hey, we're getting to this spot. There's going to be an obstacle that absolutely requires that you're already in low range, and it could be it's going to be technical for some. It's going to be easy for others. We're going to go a 3-strike and you're out rule. So start talking about that again. Reinforce what you talked about in your driver's meeting. We all need to hear it a few times, particularly me. And that's a great way to talk about that stuff before you get to an obstacle, and encourage those to have a little radio communication chat, get to know each other.
We had last year, the location provided per trail was not obvious. This year it's right in the app. Okay, so just to kind of like hit on this one more time. As Cruise Moab, we have some awesome folks that have scouted out the places where trail meetups happen. However, putting in coordinates, fat fingers happen. It's not 100% guaranteed that that's going to be accurate. I mean, it should be by all accounts. But this is why, as a trail leader, it's really important to go to that spot and make sure that it makes sense before you lead the trail. If you do and it's wrong or something is messed up, when you get back to HQ, say, hey, I went to this spot and it's not right. And so that could be like the spot was generated in an iPhone and an Android user looked for it, or they were using some other whatever, who knows. But that's why it's important as a trail leader to go to that spot plenty ahead of time and make sure that it is actually the spot where you're meeting up.
Yeah. Other things that can be chatted about on the radio, Scott brought one up there, so great input, Scott, is call out alternative routes. As you're approaching an obstacle, that'd be a great time to mention on the radio, hey, if you go left, that is the XYZ obstacle, and it's going to take this to get up, or there is a bypass that's perfectly legal and appropriate in your discretion to the right. That's a great radio communication. I would say that throughout the day, you're welcome to talk about what condition you have your vehicle in. Hey, this is a great spot for those of you that haven't to put it into low range. Hey, if you have a rear locker, this is a great time to engage the rear locker because there's a high likelihood you'll need that. Of course, we're not going to enforce that. Everyone's welcome to do any trail they want in open diffs and high range should they feel comfortable doing so. However, that's good radio communication just to be kind of reinforcing that and getting people comfortable with where the actual trail is, what obstacles are coming up. Sometimes, in fact, all the time, if you're in the back of the trail, it's a trail you've never done, you have no clue what's taking everybody so long up ahead of you. All you know is you're stopped in traffic and all you see is a line of Toyotas in front of you. So advertising that to your group, hey, we're now approaching the XYZ obstacle. This is a great time to do that.
Yep. So we have Rob Holt says, prominently display your leader door magnet. It helps with them knowing they are in the right spot. That is 100% true.
Yeah, that's a great way. So you're there early. I'm going to say an hour. I've kind of been whiffle-waffling. I'm going to say 1 hour early to your trail meetup spot is ideal, and put your vehicle with your trail leader magnets that you will get in your packet the night before, not the morning of. Have those affixed to your vehicle and park in a very prominent spot of the parking lot so that everybody that drives by or gets anywhere close can see you and want you to be out on foot, ready to shake their hand and introduce yourself.
Okay, cool. We have another one from Scott. Says there were meetup spots. So Lions Park is a good example of this. There were meetup spots where multiple trails were meeting in the same proximity, but trail leader didn't ask people that arrived. They were here for XYZ trail. So
it's an issue.
It is an issue, but it's solvable with, as a trail leader saying, hey, this is Dome Plateau. Everybody here for Dome Plateau. And then inevitably somebody will be like, oh no, I'm with Top of the World. Where are they at? And they're, 100 feet away. Yep. So that does happen. There are limited spots around town where we can park 20 vehicles temporarily. So sometimes we have to make use of one big spot for multiple trail groups. So that's great on bringing that up.
Yeah, Rob mentioned other things to talk about on the radio, any of that flora and fauna and cool local trivia, geology information you have about the trail. That was hard to spell. All great things to talk about on the radio, just to inspire folks to have a good day and not feel like they were just isolated in their vehicle.
So the last one here is keep it light, keep it fun. So nobody likes the fun police, number one. I mean, Kurt's the fun police usually. And also, it's not necessarily your job to be the fun police. So when we say keep it light, keep it fun, obviously try to keep your group under control, but also, none of this, right? I guess. I don't even know what it means. I'm not the fun police. I say everyone, we're all adults, do whatever you want.
Yeah, a lot of things. I'm going to touch on one. I think somebody kind of mentioned it a little earlier on about let's talk about spotting and when to spot again, especially on some of those trails. I want to just emphasize that's where you can stand to get behind the most in your trail throughout the day is just by spending too much time at obstacles. I don't know that's what makes me a good trail leader. I don't know that I'm a good trail leader. I happen to have the keys to the museum, so Jackson asked if I could help do the class. Happy to do it. But one thing that works really well for me at those obstacles and those spots is I don't drive my own vehicle on the trail ride a lot of times. I've driven the Devil's Racetrack and Eva Conover and Black Dragon and the Swell dozens and dozens of times at this point in my life. So I actually enjoy it more from the passenger seat when I'm the trail leader. And I only bring that up to say that you don't have to be behind the wheel of the vehicle to be the trail leader or to be a fantastic trail vehicle. If your husband or your wife or your adult children or legally licensed passengers are okay driving the vehicle and you would rather lead the trail from the passenger seat, what a great way to have a little better vibe on what's happening with the trail than worried about getting your own vehicle everywhere too. And it makes it great for those obstacle spots to pull through. We talked about the obstacles. I have my co-driver drop me off at the obstacle and say, cool, now you go drive down 20 car lengths. I'm going to hang out here and spot people up and encourage them to come up the same way. So not going to work for everybody. Maybe you're by yourself in your vehicle, but don't think you can't just be a passenger and also be a great trail leader, because that works out really well too. And then maybe that engages somebody else in your vehicle to have a time of their life getting to flog on your vehicle.
Yep. Megan usually drives.
There you go. It's a great way to do it. Yeah, put Megan behind the wheel and she owns the driving and you can own being the trail leader.
Exactly. Cool. So throughout the day, that pretty much covers that.
Yeah.
I usually do a little thing. You don't have to do this, but I come up with some little trinkets that is usually a children's thing. I've had some adults chime in on it, which is whoever picks up the most trash wins a cool little trinket. So usually this is like a hard shackle or something that's like $20 maybe. Again, that's not a requirement at all. Just like, not carrying a spare radio is not a requirement. It's just a cool thing to do as a trail leader, right?
Mm-hmm. It'll make your day easier.
Yeah,
those kind of things make
For sure
more enjoyable for everybody.
Give the kids something to do.
Yep.
Your follow-up meeting, air up spot. So as a trail leader, I like to hang out until everyone is aired up and everyone is safely on their way. So I'm usually the last person to leave the air up spot. You usually try to facilitate a small powwow of like, hey, what went well today? What sucked? Any feedback for me on doing better? And along with that, talking about airing up, making sure that everybody has a way to air up. In the driver's meeting before the trail starts, I'll recommend that everyone airs down. And if you don't have a way to air back up, that's okay. I have a compressor, and there's probably 10 other compressors here on the trail that can help you air back up. You'll have a lot more fun today if you air down. But anyways, what else you got for the air up?
That's it. Yep. Just a kind of a quick wrap up. I like to have like a little hot wash of how everything went and how everyone liked that trail. Is it a trail we should keep doing for Cruise Moab, or are we all beating our head against the wall by having that as an offering? Yeah, let us know. That's kind of where that stuff gets passed along. If everybody doesn't have any input, we'll never know.
Cool. If someone says, we just wrapped up Poison Spider and I'm going to go do Hell's Revenge tomorrow, and they're like, I'm not going to air up. I'm just going to boogie on into town. I'm perfectly okay with that. As far as I'm concerned, and I always cover this in the driver's meeting, it's like, once we get to the air up spot, the run's over. If you need help getting back into town, you can follow me, but I'm the last one to leave. So again, if someone says I don't want to air up because I'm doing something else tomorrow, that's their prerogative. You don't. Totally fine.
Yep. Love it. That's really all we have laid out. I know that was a whole lot of listening to Jackson and I chat, and I appreciate everyone sticking in there. If there's any questions you have, we'll like just open it up for 10 or 15 minutes or however long. If there's anything that we talked about or we covered in our list that you would like us to share in the chat, we could find a way to do that, or even just hold it up to the screen. I'm a list guy, and as nuanced and nerdy as it sounds, at all of my drivers meetings, still to this day, I made this list a lot of years ago, but I actually have like a little sheet, I got to hold it that way, that I run through that just helps me kind of remember the things I need to cover, because you got a lot going on, folks that you haven't ever met before, the environmental conditions, it's windy, it's rainy, it's snowing, it's 100 degrees. It's just helpful to run through and just say, here's all the things I need to make sure I cover in my driver's meeting. And I just want to reiterate on some because they're important. Your trail leaders, identify your participants, let them introduce themselves, what they're driving, the vehicles that they're in. That's a good chance for you to kind of look over those vehicles one more time. It's don't be afraid. I have this written down there because it's always something I remind myself is, don't be afraid to offend one at the expense of 20. So if one person's going to ruin the entire trail day for the other 20 trail participants because they've got a vehicle that's just not right for the trail, it doesn't meet the requirements, or it doesn't look like it's going to make it, take care of that first thing in the morning. Identify the means of communication. Talk about emergency. Identify any emergency medical professionals or officially first aid trained people in the group, and just let somebody know. And if you do have one of those and that person is comfortable doing so, designate them as like the medical contact, so that they don't need to get on their radio and say, hey guys, I'm not feeling great, this is why. They can just go find that one person you've designated and take care of that right off in the morning. Cover your brief route sketch, tread lightly, and kind of talk about the who, when, what of where we're having lunch and when we're going to be off the trail. So that's it. That's my list, but I still find it's just good to have. And yeah, I may be the nerd up there with a piece of paper I'm reading from, but I hopefully don't forget things.
So Lisa chimed in, and so this is kind of cool. I don't think we've done this since like 2018. Is like sort of a mandatory trail leader meeting at the arena on Wednesday, 3:30 p.m. and Thursday at 4:30 p.m. So I inserted the mandatory. I guess maybe it's not mandatory, but it should be. You should attend if you can.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Scott, you got questions on the San Rafael Swell overnight? Plug them in there. I can probably answer them. Jim Sandville asked, can you bring spare copies? Absolutely. I won't be at that trail leader meeting on Wednesday at 3:30, and likely not at Thursday at 4:30, because the San Rafael Swell overnighter, we usually don't get back to Moab till about that time on Thursday. However, Jackson also is a nerd and has a list, and I can promise you he will make this available on the Rising Sun forum.
We may even be able to put it on. I'm kind of YouTube illiterate, so I might be able to figure out a way to put it on the YouTube thing.
Yeah. Okay. So let's. Yeah. Great one. Coming on. Great. A lot of great things. Can you bring spare copies? We answered that one. Pets up on the trail. Why don't you tackle that one?
Yeah. So first things first. If you are leading one of the national park runs, either Lisa or Tim is going to put you in contact with me before Cruise Moab so we can talk about specific stipulations. One of the big stipulations are pets are not allowed in either of the national parks, period, not even in your vehicle. So as a trail leader, that should be part of your meeting. Hey, if you have a dog in your vehicle, you've got T-minus 14 minutes to figure out what to do with it before we go into the national parks, period. 2, I have dogs. They love running around. We board them every year just because they don't have as much fun bouncing around the trucks. There's not a lot of great things for them to run around and do. That being said, pets are totally welcome on everything else besides the national park runs.
Yeah, and I would say absolutely, if you have a pet, make sure that pet is safe and secure in your own vehicle, and definitely safe and secure around other vehicles. Perhaps everyone's out at an obstacle. Nobody wants to have to yell at your dog because it's running in front of vehicles or it's in a sketchy, unsafe spot. And while you may feel comfortable driving next to your dog because you do it all the time back home or on the trails near you, that doesn't mean everybody else likes to have a dog running anywhere near their vehicle. So kind of just keep that in mind. Hopefully that tucks that one. Somebody had a question about radios. I saw one up higher.
Yeah.
Missed the part on radios. Yeah, absolutely. So the official, I'll tackle this one.
Yeah.
The official radio of Cruise Moab is now a GRMS radio. You can get
FRS.
NFRS. Yeah. You can now get, these are very easy to get at any outdoor store or camping store, or even like big box stores will have that kind of stuff. So that is the official radio. That's not to say that as the trail leader, you can't designate with your tail gunner to use ham in addition, but I would plan on, since all your participants will be on the GRMS or the FRS, be talking on that one as your mainstay. Bring a couple of those with you. It'd be a great idea to have a couple spares. It's a great question.
Cool. So we have, I don't think it's probably necessary to go to both trail leader meetings, although it could be helpful, especially if there's some data that's shared like, hey, we went and did XYZ trail and it was an absolute nightmare because it's changed. Or something like that. So if you're available to do both, bring a cold beer and hang out and listen to what happens. Otherwise, I don't think it's probably necessary that you go to both.
Yeah, Lisa chimed in and said that Cruise Moab's official policy is that if you are out of your vehicle with your dog, we require they be leashed. I think that's a perfectly great idea no matter what in and around other vehicles. Again, your dog may be totally comfortable like mine are running alongside a vehicle as I'm out on the trail, but around other vehicles at obstacles with people that may not be comfortable with dogs, a leash is the answer. So let's just plan on making that. Sounds like that is the official answer right there.
Perfect.
I'm with Jackson. I love dogs, have 2 dogs that spend a lot of time camping with us. I don't take them on the trail when I'm the trail leader because I just got a lot of other things to be worrying about throughout the day and spotting. I don't want to have to be worried about whether I'm taking good care of my dog. So maybe let that be a thought that if it's an option to not bring a pet, we all love them. But if you're in charge of leading some trails, it's probably going to be a little easier if you don't have to worry about dogs as well.
I don't know that we covered this early on. Maybe I should add this to our notes of things, which is not only should you care about your dogs, but also your vehicle. So maybe it just goes without saying that as a trail leader, your vehicle should be in very serviceable condition. Obviously, if something goes wrong, reach out to the trail boss, Lisa, or whoever is hanging out at HQ to let them know that your vehicle is no longer serviceable to lead. That doesn't mean you can't hop in a passenger seat or something like that and go lead a trail. By all means, that's totally fine. But yeah, another thing I'll throw in there too is as a trail leader, I tend to not party as much. And what I mean by that is like I'll try to take a little easier lines, be a little easier on my truck that day. That way I'm not the one that breaks and holds up the group. So I'll throw that out there as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. If you've got a bunch of folks that want to try an obstacle and it's something that I've done and I feel comfortable I can do, or with enough effort I can get my vehicle through it, doesn't mean I need to do it that day. I'll pull my vehicle through and park it way up ahead and come back and spot others. Maybe that gives your group a little more time to stay on time, but somebody else do that. Scott, I see your question on the swell. So you're saying you got 3 wigs doing that and you're going to come in early Wednesday morning, but it mentioned the trail leader meets at camp Tuesday night. Yeah, it's an overnighter, but we do camp for 2 nights. So Tuesday night is 100% optional. We leave for the official trail at camp. We do meet at our camp area on Wednesday morning. If you can make it on Tuesday night, everybody hangs out in camps. And the beauty of that is you can have camp all set up. We camp at the same place Tuesday and Wednesday. And I will be sending, now that we have official trails are all filled up as of Saturday, I will be sending out all these details to the attendees for the swell. Since that one is off-site and has a lot of special considerations because of the the distance and proximity to Moab, well, there'll be a lot more details. But I would invite everybody to be there Tuesday night. It's not mandatory. We kick off Wednesday morning as the official trail ride, but we do camp, again, the same spot Tuesday and Wednesday, and we have somebody stay at camp throughout the day, all day Wednesday while we're on the trail. So all your camp gear is safe and can stay there. Sometimes it's a lot nicer to do the trail without your vehicle completely full of your camping gear. So hopefully that answers your question. Wednesday morning, yep, sounds good.
Cool.
You'll get the meetup spot for the swell. You'll get that in an email. Now that registration again is done, I'll be reaching out to everybody via email confirming how many are coming, like little details like that, so we know when you're planning to arrive and when you're getting there. We do meet in the swell. It's right by, it's called the Lone Warrior Camping Area. It's our permitted spot. I'll give you GPS coordinates, maps right to it. Anybody can get there comfortably with those.
Well, you're putting me to sleep. Maybe we should go look at
some.
Should we go look at some Land Cruisers?
What else we got? I don't. Where do I get the Land Cruiser shirt? Oh, this Land Cruiser shirt is a beautiful shirt. It's available here at the Land Cruiser Heritage Museum, so they are available. So I'd encourage anybody to come visit. Jackson's going to do a quick walk through the collection here once we get through all the questions.
I think. Let's see, Dan. I just saw a few pop up. Will the old Spanish Trail Arena?
Next part of the question is.
Okay, thanks for clarification. We're going back to it.
Okay, looking good there. If we haven't hit your question, toss it back in there. It got moving kind of quick there for a second, but I think we nailed all of them. I think I saw somebody just talk about Neil talked about keep the vehicle behind you in view. That's that slinky method we hammered on. Swell inspections allowed Wednesday morning. Yep, absolutely. Just be there earlier, and we'll talk about that in the email I send you. We'll tell you to be there 1 hour earlier than the normal trail meetup, and we'll have the tech inspection crew good to go. For those that show up on Tuesday night, we'll do tech inspections as you arrive. We have a great crew from the Wasatch Cruisers that our club sponsors that run, and we will do inspections as you roll into camp, get everybody dialed in, and we will leave you with your inspection form so you can turn that in when you get to Moab to get the rest of your packet.
Love you too, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Will the Old Spanish Trails Arena be open for early arrivals? Lisa, if you're still on, will you be able to answer that when HQ, she just did, perfect timing. The arena will open on Tuesday, so you can get there as soon as Tuesday. We have had a lot of attendees over the years on the overnighter runs, both Kokopelli, Swell, Lockhart, dump stuff off, leave like a trailer or even set up a tent at Spanish Trails Arena and then go on the overnighter trail ride so that they've got some of their stuff back at HQ. That's totally fine to do. So Tuesday evening is when Old Spanish Trail Arena will open, according to the latest update from Lisa. So thank you for that, Lisa. Any other questions? Jackson's dying to give you a tour. Sweet. We'll call it official.
Sweet. Let's figure this out.
Just go.
Oh, you're coming with, dude. All right. I'm going to have to see if I can flip this around and get her in. All right.
Also not discussed. We're kicking off. We're going to just do a walking tour?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just introduce where we are. I know we did in the very beginning.
I'm going to do a little pan.
Yeah, well,
keep talking.
We are here at the Land Cruiser Heritage Museum in Salt Lake City, Utah. We are what we feel is one of the world's largest collections of diverse Land Cruisers. I know there's bigger collections of Land Cruisers that exist somewhere in the world and users that own perhaps more, but as far as the different number of vehicles, we're doing a pretty good job here. The museum does operate as a 501c3, so we are here to promote and preserve the heritage of the Land Cruiser. So you can help that mission by coming and visiting. You can adopt a cruiser. There are some other sponsorship ways if you want to get more involved in the museum. I would invite you to reach out. And so hopefully Dan will chime in right there in the chat room there. Is he chiming in? I think the number as of today, it varies up and down by a couple of trucks, but I think there's 102 Land Cruisers or vehicles in the building at this moment. There are a few that aren't Land Cruisers, but for the most part, they're all Land Cruisers. So our oldest in the collection is a 1953 BJT. That's a Toyota BJT down on the end. And that actually predates the use of the name Land Cruiser. Toyota didn't have the name Land Cruiser yet, so they were using another four-letter dirty word that you can take a guess to. It wasn't until later on in the 1950s that they got a trademark infringement notice and had to come up with the name Land Cruiser. And so everything from this FJ25.
Dan says 102 now.
102. So I was right. Okay, I guessed 102. It's usually 101, 102, right in that range. And then there's one outside the building too, if I'm not mistaken.
And if you have to peace out, all good. You can
if you
catch
need to
us
leave, you don't have to hang
later.
out for this.
Just a quick run through.
Let's do it. Let's just walk.
Yeah.
So the BJT, which is a predecessor to the Land Cruiser, so it's a very special one to have here in person. Very few of these known to exist in the world. I know of, I'm going to say less than 10 that still exist out there, so that's quite rare in the grand scheme of vehicles in general. And then we kick off with our 20 series, and it's kind of fun to see. Are we going to walk? Or
Yeah, let's walk. Yeah.
20 series morphs into the 40 series. We don't have a 30 series. Toyota did make a 30 series. We just don't have one yet. If anyone knows where one is, well, let us know. Reach out to Dan and tell him where one is, because we'd love to get one. But starting at the off-white, just past the blue one, we'll get down there, all the way down to the mustard on the end, across the aisle, and back all the way this way are all different 40 series. And it may seem like we've got a lot of duplicates, but really we don't. Every one of them is significant in some way. It's either a different era or a different body style or a different series or a different motor package. So we've done a really good job of curating a 40 series collection that represents nearly every model and motor you could have in the whole lineup. Couple variances there that we still need to track down. But the goal of the museum isn't to have one of every color, one of every motor, one of every series, because we'd have to have thousands and thousands and thousands of Land Cruisers. It's kind of have one of every series, hopefully one of every motor in one of those series, but not one of every. So hopefully that makes sense. But let's keep walking.
All right.
A lot of beautiful ones.
We got to leave a little bit to the imagination too, so people come.
You got to come visit the museum.
So
Yeah.
You can't get the full Kurt tour right now, but.
Well, you don't have time for the full Kurt tour. It'll be a couple hours. Let's just keep motoring on. A lot of these come from a lot of different countries. I think Dan and I counted, so if he chimes in there, remind me. Dan, my memory is 17 different markets that these vehicles come from. Most are made in Japan, but they would have been shipped to 17 different countries where they lived before coming to museum. So a lot from Venezuela, a handful from Australia, New Zealand. We got, what do you say? To give a number?
No, Neil chimed in and said, Dan is my favorite museum artifact.
Dan is, yes. And Dan is retiring, everybody. We're currently in the hunt for a new resident Land Cruiser expert, ambassador, aficionado to kind of fill the shoes so that Dan can be really retired now. And yeah, so if you're that person, please visit the Land Cruiser Heritage Museum's website, and we'd love to hear from you and see if it is a good fit. So let's keep walking. A lot of 40s, a lot of cool ones. And what I was mentioning is
Dan says 17.
17. I was right again. Okay, Dan, my memory's not failing, Dan. It's holding out today. But we do have a handful in here that are Cruise Moab attendee alums as well, like vehicles that either belong to them, definitely some that have been to Cruise Moab. One that comes to mind right off the bat is this 40 series built by Will Carroll. Will's a member of Wasatch Cruisers and has been to Cruise Moab a lot over the years. He's since moved to Texas.
I didn't know Will built that.
Yeah, Will built that.
Right on.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun one. Remember Will Carroll? He's been to a lot of older Cruise Moabs. He was there for quite a few years. So still in the 40 series realm, we're not going to have time to do a full walking tour, so you probably just should lift the camera up high. This is our 100 series, 200 series, Mega Cruiser, and the fire trucks back over there. And further past those are the Expedition 7 vehicles, which are amazing to come check out. So Jackson, we gotta can't give it all away or you'll never come visit. So just, this is a whet the appetite. This is a sad reminder of, I think Land Cruisers are one of the toughest things that exist in the world. The only thing that's better than a Land Cruiser off-road, of course, is a rental car, but they are really tough machines, but fires and life can be really tough. And this one came from the campfire in Paradise, California. Just kind of shows, it's a great example of how tough a fire can be on a vehicle. And there's a lot of fun backstory behind this one too. You can kind of learn about that online. You can go to the Land Cruiser Heritage Museum website, and every one of these has a little audio file of Dan telling a story about these vehicles. So you can go spend a whole lot of hours learning a lot about different Land Cruisers. And it's not just the facts and features of each vehicle. Some of it's the backstory of how they came to be in the museum.
And you can have Grandpa Dan's voice just put you to sleep as you listen about cruisers.
Doesn't put me to sleep, Dan. Not me. I stay awake. We have some really amazing ones. Like these are two that we picked up from a collector in Canada. Great examples of pure survivors. These are unrestored models. So a BJ44 79 model and a 1980 model. Kind of an interesting thing to me is that the bezels are flipped, but there was some ambiguity there depending on trim and some interesting tidbits. But Like this one, for example, the plastic on the visors, that's original. That's how survivor these vehicles are. Under 20,000 kilometers. So very brand new, no paint correction.
How many hamburger donuts per mile is that?
That's hamburger, that's a lot.
How many bald eagles?
You're saying like how many freedom kilometers?
Yeah. How many freedom units is that?
12,000 and change. Of course, some beautiful 60 series. We are a little out of order. We do have awesome 55s. Anyone that knows is saying, hey, the 50s come between the 40 and the 60. And you're right, we have both 55s and a couple 56s in the museum. A lot of folks don't realize a 56 is made, and we have two of them, a tow truck and a fire truck. But because of the geography and the number of them, we go to 60 series next. So we have some really beautiful 60s, a 60, a 61, and a 62, and a few different variants, manual transmissions, of course, auto in the US 62, and diesel variants. So some really fun ones. Turbo diesel and non-turbo.
Oh, buddy, there's two of them in here now?
Two of them, yeah. And
here,
a couple of the Maltech 200s. These are the ultimate, you're going to drive around the world vehicle. Each one of these is started its life as a brand new Heritage Edition 200 series, and they were completely upfitted, inspired by the original Expedition 7 journey. Greg had the vision of, if I were to do this trip again, what vehicle would I do it in? And this is the product of that. So these are brand new 2021, started their life as brand new 2021 Heritage Editions, Heritage Edition 200s, and then they were shipped to Germany where Maltech built the cabs on them, and then back to Salt Lake here where my shop did the suspension, the bumpers, the lockers, did a bunch of other fun stuff. But those are all full living systems in the back, so pop-top campers, fridges, stoves, full power systems, very neat vehicles, and quite a few owners of them now. There's 7 of them built, each one named after a continent.
So we have a question. Do most of the rigs start and run?
Fantastic question, because it comes up all the time. They're Land Cruisers, so they could be easily made to run. That's the way I tell myself. When we moved the building to this location, this is museum location number 3, I think we drove probably, I'm just guessing here, I didn't count, but I bet we drove 50% of them. And all they needed was a battery, and they jumped. And that's even including some that have sat at that point for 10 and 12 years. And so the fuel, it's starting to get a little nasty, but they still ran. And still to this day, we do have to move some of them out for special events. So we'll move like the back half here outside to do a big event inside. And a lot of them still run. However, one by one, some of them are starting to just show their signs of sitting and being enjoyed. So we kind of mark those as do not runs if they start having problems like evacuating all their fluids. And the goal of the museum is not necessarily to maintain perfectly running vehicles, because as you can imagine, that would be an extraordinary cost. And just the bandwidth to do that would be incredible. So they are here as specimens. And I just look at it as any of them could be made to drive very easily. If we had to refresh them and had to have them as a driver, most of them could do that. Now, there's a few that have never run since the museum even owned them, like the BJT up front. So we're not going to put a whole lot of effort into restoring that vehicle because its story now with the cool patina and the look it has is better. And you'd have to make so many compromises to restore some of these. These parts aren't available for the really old stuff that the story's gone once you restore it. So hope that answers the question. But many of them, well over half of them would run and start with just a battery. Probably close to 2/3 would run and drive.
We have a challenge here.
Let's hear it.
That I disagree with personally, because I think there's 4 of them, maybe 5 now. 100 series don't get much love in the museum.
They do. Yeah, actually, our newest addition to the museum is a 100 series. So we just got an FZJ 100. So 1FZ coil packed 100 series, manual transmission, just a super sparse trim level. It's not even in the building yet, but that puts it, we have a beautiful 105, and then we've got an early and a late 100, and then we've got this one now. So I think 4 is not doing bad, and I think it's not a problem with the 100 series. We all love 100s. I'm a 100 owner still to this day. Greg, the museum founder, has had 100 for a lot of years. Jules, the executive director of the museum, daily drives 100, so there's one more that's here every day. It's just that there weren't a whole lot of huge changes across the 100 series line. You had a couple motor options around the world, and you had the 100 or the 105. So there's just not the opportunity to have that many different ones like there are the 40s, or of course, when you get to the 70 series road, there's so many different like wheelbases and body styles. So we love 100s. I love 100s. If you know of a cool 100 we should have here, let's talk. Yeah, let's keep going back around the corner here. We have kind of some, I'd say, friends of the museum, friends of Land Cruisers and/or cruisers themselves that have done really neat things. We have a new 2024 LC250 here, neat rig. That's actually a pre-production model that's on loan from Toyota, so that's cool to have here to share. We've also got the Land Speed 200 series that holds set the record at the time for the highest speed in a production class SUV. Those are massive turbo inlets. It's all things cool about that. We've got a 62. You would otherwise look at that and say, hey, that one doesn't fit into the museum. It's built, it's got a winch.
Oh, hang on. Let's do some trivia.
Okay.
We've got 28 people that are clinging on to dear life here.
Oh, man, you poor things.
Anybody know where they've seen that FJ62 before?
Yeah, before I tell, why don't you tell where you've seen it?
Free hug at Cruise Moab for whoever says where that FJ62 came from.
What does it say?
Saw the post. Can't wait to see it.
There you go. Nailed it.
All right.
That is a movie prop from the Terminal List, which is Jack Carr's television series. That's one of them. So Jack donated that. It's on loan to the museum to have here to share. So pretty cool. We could go on and on. We got to do it fast. Let's go do 70s.
Cool.
We still have dinner tonight. We got all these folks. They have lives they need to get onto. The 55s. One of the only vehicles that's backwards in the museum. And that's just because it's cool to show off the barn doors. We do have other models in the museum that are, of course, barn doors as well, like a 60 series, but you can see that from both sides. So thought it was kind of fun. I think that may have been a Dan call or a Jules call to park that one that way. And that way you can see its barn doors. We've got a cool tow truck 56, and then just a couple of really cool ones. This is a completely unrestored, super low mile. This has 18,000 kilometers on it. It is a Canadian spec, which is near identical. Very few differences about what a US model would have, but that's as good as a 55 ever gets. I mean, in my opinion, that's like probably one of the cleanest and most original that's known to exist in the world. There are a couple out there with lower miles, but this thing's pretty special. And then the opposite of that, and this ties in perfectly with Moab, is this amazing tour vehicle. Quite a few companies in Moab still to this day use Toyotas and a lot of Land Cruisers. If you've driven past the Navtech lot on the north end of town, you'll see a beautiful fleet of 80s, and they're starting to use 100s. They've got some Sequoias as well. But this was a company called Tagalon Expeditions that ran this in Moab for all those years. So just a cool one to think that thing beat all over the trails of Moab for how many years?
We need to go closer to the Wi-Fi.
Okay. 80s. I mean, so there's an argument about the 100 series. Are we back on?
Yep.
Okay. You can make the argument about the 100s, and I don't disagree. It'd be fun to have more, but we only have 4 80 series, and the 80s are a pretty dang popular Land Cruiser model. But again, there was only one body style, some trim changes, headlights from the quad lights, a couple different fascia changes, definitely some different motors available, but not. We have those pretty dang represented here in the museum. So there's one we could use. I mean, I'd like to see like a HDJ 81 here, but we're also butting up against one other major problem, and that's space. As Dan pointed out and said I was right, was 102 vehicles. There is physically, literally, unequivocally not room for 103. So the newest vehicle in the collection, that FZJ 100, it's actually temporarily stored out of the building right now until we find a spot to put it. So that's a debate ongoing of which has to come out of here to fit that in. Could be 100 that goes away. So 80s, and then this is one of my favorite parts of the museum is the 70s. So everything from this vehicle, which is a cool little soft top BJ70, all the way down to the end, with the exception of the very last vehicle, is a 70 series. And we've got 70s pretty nailed. So 70 through 79. We are missing a 72. We need one of those. There's a couple others, like some other models that would be fun to have, but we've got 70s pretty checked out if you run through the collection, both in the heavy-duty platforms and in the introduction of the light duties, which started kind of down on this second white one past me here when they went to like what would later become the Prado chassis. So got those covered pretty well here as well. So I'd say you just zoom down through here.
Yeah.
We could spend hours talking about 70s because there are so many configurations. 2-door, 4-door, 2-door truck, 4-door truck, troop carrier, all those models. Removable top. It's still cool to think that you can get a soft top 70 series. Still to this day, 70s still made. 1985, 1984 as a 1985 model, all the way through current, the 70 series is made.
All right. What last critical information do you want to give in your last minute and 15 seconds?
I got nothing. Last critical is thank you for participating. I'm amazed anyone stuck in this long with us. Have fun. Cruise Moab is such an awesome event. That's why, as I mentioned early on, and think it's probably coming up on roughly my 25th year personally of being involved in Cruise Moab or going, because it is one of the premier 4x4 events that I've ever been to. Been fortunate to travel to quite a few different ones around the world, and Cruise Moab, one is because Moab is so amazing, but bigger than that is an awesome club that puts it on, an awesome club. So that's Rising Sun that puts it on, an awesome club, Wasatch Cruisers that helps, and then just all the amazing attendees. But it only works if we have trail leaders, and that's why Jackson and I have been doing this the last few years, is just try and inspire new folks to be a trail leader. Sign up and put your name out there and come help lead trails.
Heck yeah.
That's all I got. And come visit the museum.
Yep. Come visit the museum. Come say hi to Dan before he goes somewhere else. I don't know how this works. I don't know how to do selfie stuff. Let me try to do this.
Okay.
If you have questions about trail leadership, you can ping Kurt or I here. Go to some of the folks that we mentioned early on, ask them questions, send them to Lisa, send them to Tim, the trail bosses. If you have questions, we'll do whatever we possibly can to help get them answered. But yeah, come check out.
Answer a couple out. Are we going to be timed out, or can we answer some questions real quick?
What do we got?
Yes, the video will be available in full. So as soon as we click shut down on this, I think it takes a minute for it to upload.
It'll be like an hour before
and
it's ready to watch.
Then you can watch it its entirety. So if you missed the beginning, awesome. Steven asked about the 07, the 2007 80 series. Yes, we have a 2007 80 series with absolutely no miles on. I mean, it has a few, but we're talking under 200, which is amazing. So come down and visit that. I'm not going to give any more of that away, so you got to come see.
Yep.
Shorty 45 pickup. Yeah, got a couple of those. Come visit those. And yeah, I think that I'm glad you got a free tour out of it. So now you got to come see it in person, Gabrielle.
Yep. Congrats, guys. And we're out.
Bye.
Peace.
78 miles.